Hello! Aloha! Good evening. I don't know any more languages I could say hello in. I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. How are you doing? I'm so glad it's already Thursday. Oh, time to relax a bit with this game. Well, as far as it's going to allow us to relax. A bit sleepy. That's fair, that's fair. Me too. Just one more day. And then it's the weekend again. And that's enough motivation I need right now. VTuber. Hey, hi. I don't know why my alert. There it is. Thank you very much for the follow. Hi. I was about to say, oh, my alerts aren't working, but it just took a little longer, I guess. Okay. What did we do last time? We found out that like most firewolf are dead, Also that apparently Ignis himself was the one who went into a fit of madness and rage and did that right after we had a nice heart-to-heart with him where we cuddled in the snow. So I am very interested in seeing how his chapter plays out, or his story, I guess. It's two more chapters. So I am hoping we will get to this in like, I don't know, two hours to a little more maybe. We'll see. I hope you all have drinks ready. That night, we managed to make it back safely. To alleviate our exhaustion, we decided to rest in our respective bedrooms. As for the Minotaurs, we saw jumping into the wormhole before the Ignis revelation. Canis and the GPM agents who stood guard had already taken them all into custody. Uh-oh. A day later, all of the exhaustion I accumulated in that freezing world finally began to leave me. A day? A day later and you already... Wow, okay. I got up out of bed, but I couldn't shake the anxious thoughts. One thought more than others. I'm not sure if it's really him. Yes, he does like lose sight of himself apparently, and he's not fully aware. But I really don't think he actually killed almost his entire tribe. The revelations from the Minotaur and... Though on the other hand his uncle said, yeah, it was you, sorry. Well, not even sorry. And he did say sorry, never mind. The image of Ignis' distraught face was burned in my mind. Yeah, I can imagine. Ignis. We immediately headed to our respective rooms after getting here, but I haven't spoken to him since. It's been a day. In fact, I don't even think he ever made eye contact with me. Maybe. Kororo, perhaps out of worry, slept next to me in my bed, nestling his soft, plump body against mine. Thanks to her... Okay! I could finally wake from my half-asleep, half-dreaming state of consciousness. Thanks, Kororo. I guess it's no use for me to dwell about it. I patted him as a gesture of thanks. Oh my god. He's starting to talk, and he's not just imitating. My fingertips rose, processing Kororo's abrupt demonstration of speech. Oh my god. Kororo eagerly flapped his hands in his tail, repeating those two words. Part of me started to think it was a desperate plea. What? Food. You want some food? Yes, please. Please, I need something. Are you saying you want me to feed you like I did for Ignis? The thing is, I had never heard or seen Kororo nag me for food like this before. But because he was, I picked him up and we headed down to the kitchen. I placed slices of raw fish onto a plate that Kororo might eat since he resembled a seal, and I figured seals enjoyed fresh fish. But... oh? Kororo expressed no interest in the fish. Instead, he shied away from it, completely disinterested. I think Kororo is saying you should bring food to Ignis. I took it to mean he wasn't hungry, but... was he just repeating some words he recently learned? It was unclear to me what he meant by those words. As I was completing my... I'm sorry, or what? Is that French? Mi-emploi? For today's breakfast menu. The regulars began to arrive. Rindu, who came in rather early, Dromi, who accompanied him, Misha, back from the demon world, Canis, who held on the Minotaurs yesterday, the somewhat sleepy-looking eel, and... oh man, baby. The forlorn Ignis, thus completing the party. As we all partook in the meal, I recounted what had happened the previous day to Misha and the others. Then, after I finished my synopsis, Misha fell into deep thought. Says the strongest being alive, a demon king. Canis appeared to be in agreement, nodding calmly but affirmatively. You're still... I don't trust you. I'm sorry. You used up all your chances of building up the trust again. Because you are definitely aware of the wormholes and the locations. And you have enough time to get around and people trust you, you know. イグニスが危険という妙な大義名分がある限り、アルムムたちはホールを見つけてはこの町を襲撃し。I mean, if it turns out it wasn't Romy and instead it was someone completely different, then I feel bad. But いる。君大丈夫？いつもよりぼーっとしてるような。He's probably still drained from yesterday. ああ、いえ。Yeah. 昨夜の消耗がまだ回復しきっていないだけです。どうぞ話を続けてください。Misha picked up where they left off. とりあえず、アンシャンテやその周囲が脅威にさらされるなら、俺たちにとっても人事じゃないよ。Like honestly, at this point, I'm just waiting for the Minotaurs to open the door and just come storming in here. 銃そのものは俺たちからすればなんてことないけど、人間には十分すぎる脅威だもんね。Then Ignis, who had maintained silence this whole time, finally opened his mouth. He's never there when something happens, only before after. Yeah. But like, he comes in just a little late when Ignis was meeting up with him, and only just after it's like, oh, something bad's happening. Then Ignis and I, we're chilling outside and like, oh, talking heart to heart, and it's like, the Minotaurs are here, blah, 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 blah. Those are some bad coincidences, if he really does not have anything to do with it. No, baby. But that's out of reflex I interjected, but before I complete my thought. Thank you. He sounds so done with life. だって大ぐらいの君がいないとさ、アンシャンテの売り上げが大幅に落ち込んじゃうわけだよ。結果、ここが潰れてしまっては元も子もないだろう。ええ、それに問題を起こしているのはあくまでアルムム。あなた自身が被害を出してもいないのに。害あるような言い方をするのはよろしくないかと。You're some good friends, Ignis. Believe it or not. 僕からも一言いいなら、随分とらしくないなってそんな風に思うよ、イグス。Although it was undeniable that his demeanor was atypical, Ignis was unwilling to argue his stance any further. After listening to the exchange, I let out a heavy sigh of relief. Everyone thinks of Ignis as an integral part of this place. Enchanté was a home away from home for them, and kicking him out was absolutely out of the question. I'm glad, as I muttered under my breath. I locked eyes with Ignis, who seemed to have picked up on my voice, but... Oh, he remained speechless and blithely turned away. I need to brush up on so... God, I need to brush up on so much pronunciation. This is so bad. You can hear how most of my English knowledge just comes from me reading a bunch of it. It's like, wow, no, why do you pronounce it that way? Because I've never heard it spoken out loud. I knew it. He had been avoiding me since the previous night. I just knew it. Well, duh. He prides himself on never killing and keeping you safe, and now apparently he is a killer and he can't keep you safe.
では、話を戻すとし、ある。彼らの横暴は人間界そのものを危機にさらしているのだ。ここは我々も手を打つべきだと考える。
余計なことすんな。これはベスティアと俺の問題だ。てめえの不始末はてめえでつける。
Don't be like that.
やれやれ。今日の君は何かと自分一人で抱え込もうとするね。具体的にどう解決するつもりなんだい？アルムムたちの根城もわからないんだろう。
それに時間をかければホールと人間界の関連性が他の凶悪な魔獣にも伝わるかもしれません。そうなってしまえばこれ幸いとアルムム以外の魔獣たちまで一斉に
兄貴、ここは皆さんに協力してもらった方がいいっすよ。物理的な力しかねえ俺らだけじゃさすがにどうにもできないっす。
Yeah, it's especially bad when it's like one word shares a bunch of letters with another word, and in one case you pronounce it this way and in another you pronounce it a completely different way. It's like, maybe you've seen it, there's this one video of the girl going, why is this one Kansas? And this one is not, and this one is Arkansas. America, explain! Like, I wouldn't have known that. I would have said Arkansas. It's written the exact same. Why would you do that?
人間界に味を占めて戦争まがいなことを仕掛けそうなやつだって魔獣には5万といるじゃないですか。
Mishi and the others considered Ignis' silence a silent agreement, so they carried on discussing a plan of action.
じゃあ話をまとめると、俺たちが取るべき行動の候補は2つ。まず1つ目、この町に繋がってるっていうベスティアのホールの脅威をなくすこと。それは確かに重要ですが、現実的な意見ではありませんね。ホールは基本的に我々の手にも負えない未知の現象ですし。だね。俺も天崎島の件はともかくとして、ホールなら何でもかんでも閉じれるわけじゃないし。
Yeah.
ならせいぜい発生する場所を事前に特定して魔獣の侵入を警戒するぐらいかな。
しかしそれでは後手に回り続けてしまう。
そう、2つ目の候補。こっちが大
Lure
事
them
に
out
なるかな。
someplace, I guess.
あるの。彼らがわざわざ戦いの場を人間界にする理由をなくすこと。
Which means, if you can eliminate the notion that they must eliminate Ignis at all costs, then they wouldn't have to come here in the first place, right?
そういうことになるな。それさえ解決すれば、人間界が戦場となることもなくなるだろう。
The reason the Minotaur started targeting Ignis all of a sudden was... Yeah, what was it?
そもそもよ、正気を失って暴れる魔獣なんざ。魔獣はもともと自分勝手で残酷。だからこそ、それを当然のこととして狂わねえ。どいつも理性を保ってる。 てめえは違う。戦い、
てめえは
狂って
違う
暴れ殺す。理性を保って戦う俺たちよりもよっぽど厄介じゃねえか。
I'm gonna polish your face with my fist.
奴らが危険とみなしているイグニスの特殊性、便宜上暴走本能と
His rampage instinct.
それを何とかすればよい。
Rampage instinct. An instinct held only by Ignis that sees Adamum as a danger. What? What's Adamum? He loses his mind attacking both enemy and ally when in a rampage. What's what? Huh?
それができれば苦労しねえよ。
だろうね。聞く限り無意識的なもののわけだし、あの時帝が困惑した理由も納得だよ。
Maybe he has special blood. Maybe he's not a pure
ガキの頃に身内から消えて
firewolf or something.
魔獣は激しい戦いで闘争本能を刺激しまくると正気を失って見境なく暴れちまうんだ。
おお、その件に関しては僕も初耳だな。
アルムムの言葉を鵜呑みにするなら、イグニス以外の魔獣からそんな前例が見つかるわけがないしね。
Oh, but in terms of the sanity or lack thereof, it seems like all of the minotaurs we've encountered were in a similar state, so how do we explain that? I posed the question sincerely, which prompted Rindo to pull out a tablet and fiddle with it
そ
for
っちは
a bit.
帝が答えを出してくれたよ。
Aha,
アルムムた
drugs!
ちには投薬された形跡があるんだ。
Don't do drugs, kids. They were drugged.
ただ、どこの薬かまではまだ特定できてないらしい。
Whatever those drugs were, they had to be serious.
正気を失う代わりに身体能力を上げる。
The physical what?
そういう類のものだね、あれは。
It increases the physical. Okay. Drugs. I could hardly fathom such a thing ever existing in Bestia, which leads me to ask, is it from here?
ともかくだ。つまりアルムムたちはてめえらのサガで狂ってるわ
I
けじゃ。
mean, Yggdrasil was originally from the human world, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if the drugs were also from the human world. It's like, it's always, maybe all of the stories will end up being, oh, you take something from the human world and bring it to our world, ooh, something's going wrong.
戦いで狂う魔獣はやっぱ俺だけってことだ。
Baby.
ここで気遣っても仕方ないし、そこは素直に認めるしかないよね。同じビニトルの男も肯定したって話したし。
Is there any way that his rampage instinct could be cured using Eel's magic? I might have come off as unreasonable, if not totally naive, but when I glanced over to Eel, it seems he put serious consideration into my inquiry.
精神的な抑制ですか。それに近しい法術は得得していますが、
Oh,
現状では何とも言えませんね。特にそれがイグニスの根幹。例えるのならば、人間でいうところの生理現象のようなものであれば、いくら抑制しようとも必ずタガが外れる時が来るでしょう。
you have a point.
ま、とにかくわかんないものは仕方ないよ。やれることからやっていこう。まずは暴走本能について詳しく調査。
Aha! Misha cut in, displaying his trademark smile. Then, in a hushed tone of voice, he spoke solemnly.
あとは万が一だけどさ、
Hello.
イグニスが本当に暴走したら、俺たちはそれを止めなきゃいけないし、
Cat is not a paid actor.
曲がりなりにも実力は知って
His two hands.
それはもうきっと本気で下手をしたら命のやり取りになるかもしれない。そうなったらどこが舞台だろうと周辺への影響もただじゃ済まないしさ。同じアンシャンテの常連でもっとシンプルに言えば仲間同士で
Silence hovered in the air between us, but in that silence, everyone's renewed resolve seemed to find its footing.
よし。ならばやはり、イグニスの過去についてよく知る他のビニトルに話を聞くべきだろう。
Will they talk
な
to
ら
us?
ベスティア行きは確定かな。いや、君もあったかくしていきなよ。
ええ、次回はそれを念頭に、いわゆる気合を入れて臨みましょう。
We should knit some mittens and stuff for eels' wings. Maybe it'll help. And so the discussion concluded. Misha and some of the others arranged for a trip to the Firewolf stronghold the very next morning. However, if I were to stay here all alone again, there's a chance that the suspicious person would return to fling me back in. So it was decided that it would be safer if I traveled with them. Traveled. At the end of our discussion, as everyone rose from their seats. Ignis. I called upon him instinctively, seeing as he was the last to rise from the
なんか
seat.
用か
Nothing in particular, but
なら引き止めんな
Don't be so rude. Ignis spat these words out, saying nothing else as he turned his back to me and stomped upstairs. Like, I get it, but please don't be mean. We had this nice heart-to-heart and we cuddled. Don't be mean. A piece of silverware caught my eye. It sat on the edge of a plate and I saw as it lost balance and fell into the table. The spot where it fell was the same where Ignis was set earlier. Oh. Then I realized the breakfast I had prepared for Ignis was hardly touched. It was left uneaten, long since cooled. Aww. Man. Once everybody left the scene, I stared blankly for a few moments at Ignis' leftover breakfast. I tried my best that I could to make him feel at least a little better. I even used some of his favorite seasonings and whatnot, but I guess it wasn't to his liking. No, that wasn't it. At the moment for Ignis, his entire belief system, his entire way of life had utterly crumbled. He had no strength in him to enjoy a meal. I reminded myself of this. Despite how hard I tried to convince myself, it was nevertheless impossible to lament.
店主さん、ちょっといいですか？
Just as I was coming to my own gloom, Dromi appeared all of a sudden behind me and called out to me. What's the matter? I thought you were on your way to Beastia already.
いや、なんつうか、もやもやするもんがあって、戻ってきちゃったんす。
What's bothering you?
さっきの話し合いのことっす。
I detected a hint of reservation in Dromi's voice as he opened up.
なんか勝手に兄貴の本能を直すみたいな流れになっちまったじゃないですか。
Alright, that's a worry.
当然じゃないですか。魔獣の中でただ一人兄貴だけが暴走するってことはすげえ特別だからっすよね。兄貴が最強無敵な理由もそこにあるかもしれないんすよ。だからその強さにつながってるもんを解決っつうか取り上げられるのはどうしても我慢できないっす。
I felt speechless, surprised by the sentiment behind Dromi's emotional complaint. The man I saw before me was not the usual dull and haphazard lad that he is, but instead I saw a man who admired and wanted to protect Ignis' strength.
もちろんこのままじゃ危険なのは俺だって分かってるっすよ。でも兄貴は強いからこそ兄貴なんす。ベスティアを変えたいと必死にあがいてトップに立ったその力は兄貴の奇跡そのものなんすよ。
Dromi cried out passionately, reminding me of the heart behind Ignis' mission in life. That's...
あんただって危ないところを兄貴の力に散々守られてきたじゃないですか。それを今さらこの店にとって危険だから切り捨てるって、そんなのいくらなんでも都合が良すぎるんじゃないですか。
Why is his left thumb so long? Like, hello? Don't ask me why I just noticed this, but why is his, like, on his left hand? What? By this point, Romeo was almost yelling, but he made a good point. But Ignis doesn't want this. Dromi, I'm not so sure that Ignis wants the things to stay as they are. He doesn't want to kill anyone. He doesn't want anyone to kill anyone. That's why he's accepted his fate. I think that's what he desires. Dromi, if you really think of Ignis as your bro, I need you to cooperate with us. If we leave him alone and he ends up going on a rampage and kills someone, the Ignis you know and love will completely fall apart, and I'm not sure we get him back. I tried my best to persuade him, but he seemed unconvinced. Stop screaming at me! Ooh. He reached his emotional breaking point, taking his anger out on a nearby table. What's for nothing? Oh. Whoa. The second I asked, Romy cut himself off. Perhaps he realized how irate he had become that he hurried to cover his mouth. You're getting more suspicious by the minute, my good dude. But thank you for the apology nonetheless. I was flabbergasted. I've never seen Dromi so worked up before, but it came as no surprise given how much he idolized Ignis' strength. I suppose it was an understandable reaction. Still, both Dromi and I cared deeply about Ignis, that much was undeniable, but our opinions for how he should proceed differ so much. If Ignis had overheard our conversation, what would he have said? He has some kind of plan with Ignis. He does. He definitely does. And we shall find out. There I was, laying on my bed without much to do. Everything that Minotaur and my uncle said played repeated in my head. The lies, the setup. I wondered how many times I'd replayed that scene to myself. But when I gave it some thought, even the dumbest, most knuckle-headed beasts I fought had never gone so cuckoo that they blacked out. I've had my fair share of fights, probably even more than I thought, but it never occurred to me until now. Guess I started to realize how much of a total moron I've been this whole time. No, the real question was... Okay, but to be fair, he has not killed anyone ever since he, like, for times he was aware. I mean, it has to come as a shock that he apparently killed someone when he was a child, but like, ever since he made that vow to himself, like, okay, I won't kill anyone and still be as strong as he hasn't killed anyone, so what's the problem here? I felt like a stranger in my own body. At any minute I could lose my sanity and murder someone, friend or foe. That to me was scarier. I could attack anyone as opposed to someone who killed intentionally. Oh, I see. That's your problem. Okay. I'm a killer. I have killed. Other beasts, no less. Even worse, my kin, the firewolves who I tried to protect. And Kotone, she heard it all. Well, duh. We believe in you. We believe in you. Well, be that as it may, you've kept true to your creed, which means you've never killed anyone, right? I just don't get how someone can hold any fear or hatred toward you for something you haven't even done. Oh, we did say that. Seems like I lied to her about my vow never to kill a long time ago. It's drove me to entertain the thought. If you can think about leaving, I drag you back by the... Does he have a tail? He doesn't have a tail. Damn it. We'll drag him back though. Let's go home, Ignis.
お前らだけで戻れ。俺は
I should have pushed her away back then. No, even before that, before she heard the truth. Kotune's warmth. I cringed to myself, thinking that I might have taken her kindness for granted this whole time. I used these two monstrous hands, stained by the blood of who knows who, to touch her. Oh my god, dude. All of the comforting memories that I had of Kotone were being overridden by fearful ones. What if, on that day, at that moment, I had turned into a monster and had pointed my fangs at Kotone? Once I started down this rabbit hole, there was no turning back, because I had already taken a dear friend's life with my hands. There's no guarantee that I wouldn't do the same to Kotone. And yet...
いつもあいつでおかしいなんであんな話を聞いた直後に俺なんかの手を取った
Why wouldn't she fear that I would kill her the moment she touched me? Why would she allow this bloodthirsty monster to sit inside of her cafe?
くそもう全部が意味わかんねえよ
My head was ready to burst back to the brim of revelations and confusion. As I let my emotions get the better of me, once more the door swung open. I shut up just in time to see... Gainus!
なんだてめえがかぬせノックぐらいしやがれっての
He's gonna knock you square in the head for making Kotone sad.
ここは我の部屋でもある。普段はノックなどしていないだろう。
That explains why they have the same background CG.
何をそんなにも意気消沈している。いつものお前ならば、アルムムたちを片っ端からぶちのめせばいい話だ。と、好戦的に笑っていただろ
うるせえてめえに俺の何がわかるってだ
Are you sure?
そうだな。何もわからぬよ。我とお前では、生まれも年も立場も、何もかもが違う。だが、お前が急によそよそしくなったことで、琴音が落ち込んでいるのはわかる。
You know, for Fairy, where they don't need these kind of emotions, he does know a lot. And he can tell. He hit me right where it hurts. It couldn't even muster up the energy to howl.
仕方ねえだろ自分がいつ周囲の奴らをぶっ殺すかわからねえ化け物そんな真実を突きつけられてよ一番あっさり死にそうなあいつに平然と近づけると思うのか
Because you managed fine before you knew about this?
イグニス、それは言い訳にならん。
There are two beds? Yeah, the one on the left and the one on the right. Oh, right, that's a bed. I thought the one on the left was like a piano because you only see this tiny bit with the text box on. Oops. I guess it's two beds.
彼女の身を案じ
And
な
one
がら
shared room, okay.
今まさにお前は彼女を傷つけているではないか。わざわざお前のために用意した料理まで手をつけず。
Go off, Canis.
お前の杞憂はわかる。気にせず普段通りに接しろ。とは言わん。
Yeah.
せめて琴音に己の本心を
You
打ち
should
明
be
けろ。
tell.
このままでは琴音は沈むまでに来るぞ。お前は彼女にあんな顔をさせるためにここに戻ってきたのではあるまい。
Those were Canis' parting words before he left the room.
おせっかい首なし野郎が説教するためだけに来たのかよ
Yes, because you needed it.
そんなこと言われなくたって分かってんだっつうの
Just as I muttered this to myself. At this point I was growing resentful, for my stomach could howl almost as loud as I could even now. Well, guess I did skip breakfast, even if it's right in front of me. Can't be helped, I suppose.
待て
That's weird. I only skipped one meal, why am I this hungry? I
俺
mean,
はここまで食欲なんてあったか
When I first met the old man, no matter how exhausted I was, a single meal was enough to satisfy me, but... Oh. I sat alone in my room without much ado. Kororo was laying comfortably in my arms as I stared at a faint stain on my wall. This feels odd. Normally at this hour I start getting anxious if I'm not doing something. It's better to close up shop at this point. My only reservation was thinking about a customer who wanted a cup of coffee. But I just can't. I didn't want to think about the leftover food, so I ran back to my room. The one who's hurting the most is supposed to be Ignis, right? At the very least, I wanted to get my body up and moving. So I got to my feet and pulled a book from my shelf that Grandpa had left behind. Maybe I can learn a little bit about Ignis and the Beast, but... Greek mythology, ancient Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology, biblical mythology. There's so many mythologies involving animal races, it was hard to pin down. Of course, animals aren't like fairies, angels, or demons where their existence is limited to certain texts and regions. In that case, what if I narrow it down to mythologies that include werewolves, like Ignis? Well, that's still a bunch. While flipping through the pages, I heard someone rap on the door. The force of the knock startled me. I set the book down on my bed, leaving the page open next to Kororo. Come in? Who could it be? I signaled my consent for them to enter as I rushed over to the door. Hey! I knew it was you, Ignis. I thought he had been completely avoiding me, but now there he stood. It was impossible to contain my confusion. At the same time, now that he was here, I forced myself to act as normal as possible, so I began to speak. What's the matter? Did you need anything? Oh, let me guess, are you hungry? You didn't eat any of your breakfast. I fixed you some food right now, so stay put. Oh. Ignis took a deep breath and with an uncharacteristically solemn voice he said, Oh, he's coming around. He doesn't drag... He didn't... Oh. They don't spend like 3 chapters dragging it out that they can talk with each other. That's nice. It's okay, you don't have to apologize for that. I know you were confused. Besides, you were upset, weren't you? So it's... Hey. Okay, that's... No. Hold on. That wasn't the plan. What? His words took me by complete surprise. Wait, what do you mean? But that's why we're going tomorrow, to find a solution to this whole fiasco. Didn't you hear everybody object to the idea of you leaving Enchanté? That it's out of the question? You've managed to contain your rampage up to this point, so you can... I can, with the power of love. What do you mean, Funky? Is that... Oh, true, we saw that. We had this screen of red for a second. But you didn't. Ignis was barking. He bit his lip to contain his fury.
シャンテに来ねえ。そんだけ伝えに来た。
Yeah. He ended his remarks, spinning on his heel to leave my room. What? A CG! Wait! I quickly grabbed his hand, hoping it would stop him. The moment I did so, however, Ignis yanked his arm away from me. It was like he was afraid of touching me.
話せよ。
No!
話せっ
No!
つってんだ。
No! In the face of Ingis. In the face of Ignis's petulant resistance, I too resist like a nagging child. I understand what you're trying to say, Ignis. In the worst case scenario that your rampage flares up, you don't want to inadvertently hurt any of us, right? I think it's understandable to feel that way. If I was in your position, I'd probably have the same inclination. But still, one thing's for sure. I never want to contemplate what the Enchanter would be without you. I knew I was being selfish, but I couldn't simply let him leave, not after everything. The idea was unthinkable. The veins on Ignis's forehead bulged.
加減現実見ろよ。どんだけ俺に夢を見てんだ。俺はな、お前が今掴んでるその手で殺してたんだぞ。かつて縄張りを襲った魔獣たちを、仲間のピニトルを、たちを理性をなくして一匹残らず。無意識だとしてもそれを隠してお前に不殺なんて大嘘吹いてたクソ野郎なんだよ。
But you didn't know.
前にお前は言ってたじゃねえか。俺が不殺だから怖くねえって。だが俺は実際殺してた。
But I never saw it.
Huh?
I never saw you do it. I've never seen you kill anyone, not a soul. So, you can't expect me to hate you or to be afraid of you.
この
My voice was quivering. If I were to let loose, a deluge of tears would come streaming down my face. But I desperately held all of it back. After all, I'm the one tormenting Ignis with my personal feelings. Crying now when he was at his most vulnerable would be unfair. I would only be bringing him down while his hands were full from his crisis of self. I'm an ordinary human being. After hearing everything that happened, I can't lie and say that the thought doesn't frighten me a little. But still, the Ignis I know is better than that. He's kind, he's gentle, and he's you. I can still hold your hand like this.
なへりくつ。
I don't care. The least you could do is not assume. Until after tomorrow, I don't want to contemplate what happens in the worst case scenario. Can't you see? I want you here, Ignis.
なんでこの後に及んでそんなことが言えんだよ。お前を傷つけてからじゃ遅えって言ってんのに。
Despite my heartfelt, desperate pleas, as I should have expected, Ignis was stubborn and his heart was set. It was tragic. It was painful. But I didn't notice until now. Kororo was sitting on the bed, staring at the open book in the corner of my eye. Wait, what? And it's the sad music changes for me every time. I swear to God. Early the next morning, we finalized everything for a bestial trip.
最近やたら事故や道路の工事が多いとは思ってたけど、あれベスティアが関係してたんだ。でも本当に琴音まで行くの？いや、例の侵入者とかでこっちのが危ないのは分かってるけどさ。
Kadia came to see herself expressing concern with Kororo safe in his arms. I responded with an awkward smile, donning the blanket that I had received from the young beastling. Right, I'll be okay, promise. I have everyone with me. You be careful too, Kadia, just in case those minotaurs show up in town.
大丈夫。一応 GPM の人も辺りを巡回してるって言ってたから。
Normally I would have asked Kadia to watch after the cafe for me, but there's a chance the intruder who assaulted me could come back at any time, so this time Kadia was instructed to stay at home. One of Mr. Reno's trusted subordinates and at the not-so-gentle behest of Michie agreed to watch after the cafe for me. Also, it was decided that we would leave Kororo at home with Karia under the guise of a stuffed animal. Or so we had planned. Yeah, Kororo is definitely coming with us. There. All of a sudden Kororo shifted his weight, leaning out of Karia's arms and dropping into mine. Kororo? This felt awfully familiar. I tried my best to give him back, but... Kororo dug his claws into my arm, seemingly unwilling to part with me.
一緒に行きたいみたいだね。あ、ベスティアはコロロの故郷なわけだし、機会があるなら行きたいのかもね。
Mr. Reno, who was eavesdropping from the side, interjected.
いいんじゃない。君の危機をイグニスに知らせたって実績もあるし、足手まといにはならないと思うよ。
You know what I think would be funny? Kororo just assuming a human form all of a sudden, like, boom, I'm here, hi. Thank you. Alright, Kororo, we're going. Yeah! Karia handed Kororo over entirely, wrapping both hands around his plump body.
さて、僕も魔獣の毛皮は身につけたし、帝から預かった通信機もバッチリ。忘れ物はないかな。
Transmitter?
最近開発に成功した新作だってさ。
Mr. Reno beamed with pride as he pulled the device out from his pocket, though it looked like a smartphone to me. Mr. Reno explained how the device enabled communication between realms with a GPM as a broadcast point. Also, it took photos. The entire room took interest in this device as Misha and the others huddled close to sneak a peek at the palm-sized transmitter. Mikado's Communicator, a prototype device made by Mikado to communicate with other worlds. Presently, it is only possible to communicate with Bisha. Wait. But we had that thing in the other route as well.
やっぱ人間界の技術の方がよっぽど魔法っぽいよね。
まさか異世界との境界を越え会話を可能にしてしまうと。
まあまだまだ試作段階で音質は悪いし、通信がいきなり途切れる可能性も高いらしいけどね。
お前ら無駄口叩いてねえでさっさと行くぞ。
ドローミスも向こうで待機しているようです。あまり待たせるのもよろしくないかと。
Oh, sure. So, Ignis grabbed a hold of the doorknob, bracing myself as we entered the gate to be... What? For a while I stared at him from behind. Without a word, I grabbed onto his shirt.
なんで俺を掴むんだよ。別に他の奴らでもいいだろ。
I'll give it a rest. As if in reference to our conversation from the previous day, I hold him ever so tightly. Ignis, realizing it likely wasn't worth the argument, let out a sigh in defeat.
勝手にしろ。
Heh heh. His response was as cold as I expected it to be as he squeezed the doorknob. From there, we were transported back to the unforgiving snowy world altogether.
兄貴に店主さんたちお待ちしてたっす。兄貴の地元ことビニトルの縄張りに改めてご招待するっすよ。他の魔獣たちがいないルートを事前に調べてあるからご心配なくっす。
Alright, we're counting on you. I was unsure if he had gotten over our last conversation, but Romy welcomed us at the gate entrance, awkward as ever. Suspicious as ever. Without taking any detours, we proceeded straight down the guided path. Of course, with the conditions and the distance, we took occasional breaks. Soon I began to recognize my surroundings. As we ambled down the path which led us straight to the Firewolf stronghold, we heard an electric pinging sound, one that was far into its frozen world, coming from Mr. Rindo's pocket. That sound, of course, was none other than...
Mm-hmm. 聞こえてる。じゃ、切るよ。
Because you called him old. Mikado's volume was cranked all the way up, making it so all of us could hear their playful banter.
無駄に声がでけえな。
でもすごいっすね。 本当にベスティアと人間界の間で会話ができちゃったっすよ。
It is very cool. Seriously, guess that proves it. Mikado really is a genius, isn't he? Ouch. The sound quality is amazing.
ミカド、自慢とテストだけが目的なら本当に切るぞ。
お願いですか？
とは言っても大したことじゃないよ。イグニス君についての話を聞くときに僕にも会話が聞こえるよう通信をつなぎっぱにしておいてほしいのさ。直に話を聞いてこちらからも彼に関する考察をしたいからね。意外とまっとうなお願いだね。
だね。てっきり全ビニトルの採血でもしてこいとか言い出すかと思ったよ。とりあえず了解。ただあっちにとって通信なんて未知の塊に見えるだろうし、話してる最中は騒がないでくれよ、ミカ。
Ah. Mikado squealed, responding with energetic affirmation as our company set off again down the tray. The only thing I could think of was how different Bestia looked from day to night. Back then the ice blocks were deep as sure, but now they were close to transparent. The trek was a lengthy workout. Just as my knees began to howl in pain, we finally reached our destination. The men in our group visiting for the first time began inspecting the surrounding igloos and large torches with intrigue.
へえ、ここがビニトルの縄張り。
他の魔獣の縄張りとは違い、炎が灯してあるのだな。
炎の魔獣ってことを考えればそれが普通なんだろうけど、氷だらけのベスティアだとなんだか不思議だよね。
ひとまず私個人としては他の縄張りに比べればいくらか暖かいですし、ありがたいです。
As soon as the firewalls took notice of us, the thin population began to buzz. The discomfort was palpable. All of the firewalls caught sight of Ignis, and the fires located beside their ears diminished without warning. Ignis, however, hadn't seemed to mind and instead marched through the snow.
おい、おじき。あんたに聞きてえことがある。
Ignis grabbed the arm of the man who just a couple days ago delivered the earth-shattering news to him. The old man shook his hand, signaling to a worried bystander that everything was fine.
今まで騙してきた罪滅ぼしにはならんが、私が知っていることをすべてお前に打ち明けるとしよ
う。Appreciated. Out of respect to Ignis' unwavering resolve, the old man nodded, obliging his resolve. Oh, okay. He escorted our group to an empty igloo to begin the discussion. But first we introduced ourselves. We took the time to explain to him the circumstances happening in my world. Then Ignis' expression warped as he began to interrogate the man.
まずは再確認だ。俺がガキの頃、縄張りを襲った連中と仲間のビニトルを正気を失った上で皆殺しにしたってのは。ああ。
After a long pause, the man nodded out of resignation.
我らビニトルは古くから迫害されているがゆえに、もともと戦える若者が少ない。あの惨劇の最中にできたことといえば、必死に逃げ延びることぐらいだった。そうして我らがどうにか身を潜めている間に。
Hello, hello. Hi. How are you?
暴走したイグニスが残った仲間や襲撃者たちを。
皆の断末魔を聞けば、あの場で何が起きていたのか。
そうか。
Ignis reminded once again of the atrocities he had committed, uttered in silent confirmation, choosing not to erupt in rage, but to nod instead. However, we all believed this to be the story's end. The man whose face sagged heavily with regret continued to speak, pointing his nose at the ground while recounting his tale.
これはお前自身に問うべきかわからぬのだが、あの時のことを何も覚えてはいないのか。
Please sit down. Make yourself comfortable and enjoy. We are still finding out more about Ignis's backstory. Ignis shrugged, offering his usual response. Despite his sincerity,
そうか。ゴジン、何か気になることでもあるのか？
the man stood in his hesitant demeanor as Candace interjected. And then he let his gaze wander for a moment, all of us hanging on the edge of our seats as he unraveled. And the ferryman. No, this ferryman. But I told Gaul to check it out. We're continuing the storyline, but I don't think he's aware.
実はその騒動の際にいくらか我らの同胞が数を減らしていてな。
そりゃそうだろ。敵味方問わず、俺が大半を殺したってんなら。
いや、そうではないんだ。それ以外にもあの混乱の際に集落の外にかなりの数が散ったようでな。十数人ばかりなのだが、死体も特に見当たらなかったため、おそらく逃げ延びたのだと思っているが。
Maybe there are other firewolves alive. Ignis was asked if he recalled any of them, though unsurprisingly, Ignis shook his head with an inquisitive gaze.
そうか。まあ、きっとどこかで生き延びていると信じるしかなかろうな。
Maybe, excuse me, maybe he didn't actually kill his friend. Yes, there's blood on that weird armor, and yes, but maybe he didn't kill him. Maybe he's one of the ones that got away. And now that one's out for revenge. And it really isn't Dromi.
イグニスに真実を伏せていた理由はやはり自衛の武力として利用するためですか？
ああ、その通りだ。言い訳のしようもない。すまなかった。
He bowed his head deeply. All of us, including Ignis, could do nothing except wait quietly for the silence to pass.
あの時のことを話すとすれば、この程度だと思うが、他に何か質問はあるだろうか？
はいはい。俺たちイグニスのその暴走本能をなんとかしたくてさ、情報集めの最中なんだけど、君以外にも話を聞けそうな人っているかな？
いや、皆やはり私と同じ程度のことしか。
He stopped in the middle of his sentence as if something caught his eye.
いや、そこのドローミが何か知っているかもしれん。そやつもその頃すでに我らと生活を共にし、その騒動を生き延びた一人だ。それにそやつはあの時最もイグニスから近い場所にいたはずだが。
With this unexpected remark, everyone pointed their eyes at Dromi.
いや、確かにそりゃそうっすけど、でもなんもわかんないっすよ。俺あの時
Sure you did.
ですっ転んでそのまま気絶してただけだし。
ガキの頃からとことん使えねえな。
ひどい！存在を全否定されてる気分っす。
As Dromi sat the flummoxed, Mr. Rindo continued with his own question.
ビニトルの中に過去イグニスと同じような暴走をした個体は、例えば遠い先祖とか何か心当たりはありませんか？
先祖か。ビニトルの祖となった魔獣は他とは比にならぬ強い力を持っていた。世代を重ねるごとにそれも中身が薄らいでしまっていてな。
You could write it down. The man closed his eyes, conveying to the group that it was time we took our leave. Okay then. As soon as we exited the stronghold, Mr. Rindo pulled out his transmitter.
ミカド、もう自由に喋っていいぞ。今までの話を聞いてどう思った？
どう思うも何も、どれもはっきりしない話ばかりで考察する材料にすらなり得ないね。
Even though I couldn't see Dr. Mikado's face right in front of me, I could see he was frustrated, sitting cross-armed on the call. Everyone else in our group was the same, pondering with arms crossed or dropped chins. They were all completely preoccupied with the idea of Ignis's rampage instinct.
魔獣としての闘争本能が強いといえばそこまでだが、そもそもの話、暴走するのは本当にイグニスだけなのだろうか。
ねえな。
俺もないっすね。
自称とはいえ情報通のドローミスが言うならば望み薄でしょうね。
あと可能性があるのは実は気がついてないだけで、ベニトルっていう種族全体が実は
Maybe you
み
need. No,
ん
never
な
mind. I was about to say maybe they need to live through some kind of traumatic event, but like I guess seeing your family and friends slaughtered, I guess all of them lived through a traumatic event.
暴走本能そのものがベニトルの隠された本性っていうことかい。
いや、だとしたらそれこそ前例の一つや二つ少しは残ってるはずだろ。
ですがある日唐突に種族通しての異端な存在が生まれてくるというのも考えづらいです。
カリアもしかりだが、力というものは血に色濃く影響される。やはり何かしらの要因がビニトルという種族にあるのではないか。
つってもな、本気で心当たりなんかねえぞ。死んだ親父もおふくろも普通のビニトルだったって聞いてるしよ。
I sat deep in thought, hoping to grasp the flick of some great epiphany that would answer and ease all our concerns at once. But sadly, I was no expert. Truthfully, I hadn't the faintest clue what could induce a beast into a rampage. From my perspective, it felt like a submission to a baser self. Those minotaurs were encountered. I swear to God, we encountered had certainly given credence to the claim. So I mumbled aloud. Is there anything in the realm of simple features or qualities that makes him different? Like, what separates Ignis from other beasts? But if I were to guess, if the answer was so easy to begin with, we wouldn't be in our current situation. Something that originally was little more than a blind pitch thrown under my breath.
いや、
食べることに決まってるじゃないか。
What does that have to do with anything? Huh? Misha, Mr. Rina, and Mikado all had apparently picked up on my idea, synchronized in a declaration.
Huh?
The claim caused Ignis' jaw to drop as he shot a wide-eyed stare back at them.
いや、イグニス、君、アンシャンテで普通に食事してるよね。
おう、それ今更確認しなくても毎日のように見てることじゃねえか。確かに魔獣は本来飯がいらねえもんだけどよ、別に食ったからってどうこうねえだろ。
いや、なんというか、その前提が間違ってるんだよ。
いいかい、イグニス君。魔獣は食事が不要なんじゃなくて、食べられないのが正解なんだよ。
Oh.
せいぜい氷や水を摂取できれば、それでも上出来だよ。
What?
もしかしてイグニス知らなかったの？当たり前のように食べてるから今まで指摘しなかったけど。
はぁ？Ignis' cry echoed through the thunder so loudly it nearly triggered an avalanche. His reaction was more shocked than anger, not that the distinction saved us from flinching. Beasts can't eat? But how do you explain Ignis eating enough to feed a whole family in one sitting every single day?
それは矛盾していますね。
一体どういうことなのだ。
Mikado cleared his throat, looking around the room as he could. How is Mikado looking around the room? He's not here.
けれど、イグニス君、
he does need food. Like he why is that?
理由は至極簡単。ベスティアに生息する人外。
But, huh?
彼らは消化器官を持ち得ないからな。
Excuse me? Demon beasts, they all do not possess digestive organs and cannot eat. The most they do is wet their throat with water or ice. Ignis being able to eat like a normal person is an exception to the norm. What?
僕が今までに検体として見てきたベスティアの魔獣300体その胃も腸もない生態である君が食事という行為を当然のようにこなしている。
Huh?
他の魔獣との差異は何か。それを気にするのであれば、これ以上のことはないだろうね。
What? Soon after, he howled and fell speechless.
帝がイグニスの血液サンプルを欲しがっていたのも
Does
そ
he
れ
just
が
like...
理由だったよね。
Yes, Ignis can eat all the cake he wants.
そうだとも。結局一滴もくれなかったけど。
Come to think of it, Kororo didn't make a pass at the fish I gave him, and the most Rome he ever had at Enchanté was a cup of coffee or ice cream.
はい、そうっすね。
おいこら
そんな、なんで言わなかったみたいな眼光送らないでほしいっす。俺だって兄貴が飯食ってるの疑問に思ってたっすよ。でもビニトルの特徴なのかなと思ってたんすもん。
My goodness, who could have known his eating, which just seemed normal, had unseen consequences? How do beasts normally generate stamina then? You're saying energy doesn't matter to them, right?
生まれつき一生を生きるのに必要なエネルギ
はあ
ーというかカロリーみたいなものを持って生まれるみたいだよ。
What?
それを少しずつ消費して寿命を迎えるまで生きていくらしいんだ。
There must be an enormous amount of calories, though. I never knew that.
イグニスといえば食事。そんなイメージがついていただけで驚きを隠せんな。しかしさすがに食事が可能であることが暴走本能につながるとは思えんが。
Ignis, on the other hand, had a peculiar reaction to this new revelation, one that was surprising in its own way. His somewhat thorny demeanor from earlier had mostly faded and was now replaced by total shock. All of a sudden, Kororo became unsettled and started to wriggle around in my arms. What's wrong, Kororo? Hey! Like a rubber bouncing ball, Kororo leapt from my arms. From there, he landed and hopped onto the icy ground. Kororo began flapping his arms around on the snow, all while calling Ignis' name.
俺が
Who else here is named Ignis? Can you understand him, Ignis? Yeah!
わかるわけねえだろ。
I love him. He's a baby. Perhaps out of frustration with Ignis' lack of action, Kororo began to flail his arms forcefully. Then he pointed his arms in a certain direction. Someone finally had picked up on the small creature's gestures. It wasn't Ignis, but in fact Mr. Reno of all people.
もしかしてこの方向へ僕らを連れて行きたがっ
でもあっちは
Ignis pauses his sentence, shifting his eyes over to Dromi with a strange look of deep concern. What's over there?
いや、俺の故郷つかティグリスの縄張りだった場所の近くなんすよ。
Oh, where it used to be? Oh, that's right. Dromi's friends and family had also been annihilated by beasts. Sorry, I didn't mean to remind you of bad memories.
いいんすよ。もうずいぶん昔のことっすし、今の俺には兄貴たちがいるっす。あそこ海が近いっすから、コロロ急に泳ぎたくなっちゃったんじゃないっすかね。
Kororo doesn't like Dromi. And you know what we say? How animals can feel how someone is like they can feel if a human is bad. And Kororo doesn't like Dromi. I don't trust you. No. No, you're staying with us. Don't let him go. Don't let him leave. Don't let him leave. Fuck. Okay, thank you. I could only imagine how painful it was to return to the ruins of your fallen king. Tommy ran back to the Firewolf stronghold with his eyes pointed at the snowy boulders. And I must read your mind. Yes, I do. Oh, I don't feel bad for him. Because I don't trust him. Yes, you're right. I wouldn't want to show him any disrespect. I picked Kododo up and plowed my feet through the plushy snow towards the sea to where Kododo was inexplicably drawn. Close to shore, the smell of sea salt hit my nose. Kododo leapt toward the crashing waves. With that momentum, he dove into the ocean.
ああしてるとほんと普通のアザラシにしか見えないよね。
SNS 映えしそうですが、また林道に怒られてしまうので自重しておきます。
It was all smiles on a windy beach as Kododo splashed playfully in the shallow water.
たぐ、揃いも揃ってゆるい顔しやがって。ここまでの緊張感が台無しじゃねえか。
In the end, nothing could ever take the wind out of Kododo's sails. And then suddenly, I realized Ignis and I stood side by side, engaging in normal conversation at last. It then occurred to Ignis shortly after. He immediately reacted by averting his gaze. So I obviously get closer to him. Ha! I missed the closeness that he and I shared once before. I took an inconspicuous step closer to him. By the looks of things, Ignis didn't exactly try to escape from me, but he still pursed his lip awkwardly. It was like we were thrust back in time, an awkward portray of our early days. It felt rather lonely. Aww. After our conversation wafted into the ocean air, he and I stared blankly at the water. Hey Ignis. Forgive me if saying this overstepped some kind of boundary, but after earlier, something about it made me happy. Beasts technically don't ever eat because they don't have to, right? If you were one of the beasts that couldn't eat, I would have never seen the look on your face after eating a big meal, that big goofy smile. I know that you're suffering right now, but I still want to spend time with you over at Enchanté if you would like to visit. I want to feed you whatever meal you want every day of my life. Yes? I don't know how to say this, but that's how much I... Oh my god. How much I... Wait, what was I trying to say? Kododo thrashed at the water violently, which splashed upward and hit Ignis in the face. Water droplets trickled from the bridge of his nose to the tip until it dripped down. Ignis held his pose quietly, letting the curtain of water in his face fall slowly to the ground. Unable to contain himself, Ignis nearly popped the vein from trying to roar at Kododo.
Huh?
Kododo poked his head out of the water to say something unusual. The others who stood watching in the distance gathered towards us, curious about what was going on. Kododo floated joyfully in the water, pointing his big eyes at us. Said Kododo before diving once more into the water and swimming away. Ha! Kododo, wait! Where are you going? The depths obscured Kododo's shadow and suddenly he was gone. Well, we have to hurry and chase him. Maybe we will find that weird cave. We saw at the start of this route.
何か問題があるのならば。
いえ、まだそれほど離れていないでしょうし、可能かと。すぐに実行します。
Eel soared into the air, casting the same detection spell he had previously used to locate the Pakus. Okay, yeah. Whoever translated this route apparently was like, okay, I'm using the names the game like originally gave them, while all the other routes were like, oh no, we're going to rename the beasts. I guess. I'm so...
彼にもここはアルムムがいた場所だったのに、怖いもの知らずにも程があんな。
Ignis mumbled to himself, presumably out of concern for Kororo. That's when.
イグニスと餌食べるはともかく餌なんてコロロいつそんな単語を覚えたんだろう。
さあ、僕は心当たりないけど、テレビとかそれか街中で聞いたとかかな。
Kororo uses any and all pronouns. Kororo is an any pronoun type of seal. I guess.
俺もそっか。けどなんで全然関係ないこのタイミングで。
From a short distance, Monsieur and Mr. Reno watched the situation with great curiosity. Kororo's an envy again. Yes! Thanks to Eel's spell, we were able to check Kororo's location. The former angel glided above us, guiding us through the path on our pursuit. But at the end of our long run, we hit a dead end. Our path blocked by a gigantic ice boulder. It seemed that the only way we could progress any further would be to dive underwater. Eel, noticing our predicament, landed on the ground, albeit while stumbling. Albeit. Wait, it's pronounced albeit, isn't it? I heard that only recently. I was like, nice, another word to the list of things I've been pronouncing wrong my whole life.
どうやらコロロはこの先にある空間にて待機しているようです。
いる。お疲れ様。でもその様子を見る限り、やっぱりベスティアで琴音を探した時の
It's been literally less than like it's been a day.
はい。
Of course he wouldn't have recovered. Huh? Really? It suddenly became evident in me. I noticed how the color had been draining from Eel's face.
お前な、そういうことは早く言えよ。だったらこっちも無茶させねえっつうの。
ですが、私以外のものではコロロを追うことができなかった
You
のは
could
事
warm
実で
him
しょ
with your flames.
ただ、申し訳ありませんが、これ以降私は秘書以外でお役に立てないかと。
I wonder why it's specifically him that gets so drained from being in Bestia.
十分だよ、いる。そのままゆっくり休んで。
ああ、この程度の行き止まりも我らには何の
Yeah,
障害にもならない。
boy. In one swift movement, Canis unsheathed his blade, raised it into the air, and shattered a huge block of ice. Hydrate time. That's a good idea. Hold on. Hydrating. Hydrating is very good. Very good. A path opened before us, but its entrance was damp and dimly lit. Yeah, it's definitely the cave from the start of the... Haha! Is this an ice cave?
ティグリスの縄張り近くにこんなもんがあったのか。
I wonder what we'll find in here. Ignis, it seemed, shared in my wonder at such a secluded location. I wonder why Kororo swam all the way
ただの
here.
気まぐれだろ。とっ捕まえて説教だ。
Yeah, of course, he just wants to mess with you. Right. As soon as we set foot inside, my skin clenched as the stone walls and ground insulated a punishing chill. I took a deep breath, hoping my resolve would warm me in the freezing depths. It is the cave from the beginning. Soon we arrived at an opening. The narrow path emptied into a wide hall. We can stand side by side with room to play. It wasn't exactly a cave, but rather a...
氷で作られた祠みてえだな。
Oh. I thought I might have faintly recognized the scene from a historical documentary. Then in the pool of water situated at the center of the shrine was... Of course you are! Kororo poking his head out enthusiastically. Kororo, we were worried about you. I hold my arms out wide for him to come. Normally, whenever I posed like this, Kororo would cry out loudly and leap into my arms, but this time... Kororo? For some reason, he didn't budge. Instead, Kororo began to swim toward the rear of the shrine. He emerged from the water and poked the wall with his horn as if to direct our attention to the spot. His tiny horn was pointing at a small engraving etched onto the wall.
壁画?
Oh?
いや、絵だけじゃないね。 GPM のデータベースで見かけたベスティアの古代文字も薄く刻まれてる。
Kororo turned around, seeing that we had taken notice of the hieroglyphics. Kororo had the mural to his back. Then he began to speak in a manner those of us who normally interacted with him at Enchanté had never heard before. The lively mood among our expedition party was replaced by solemn, focused attention. We stood fully entranced by the little creature as if it were about to recite a lengthy tale. So began the little creature. He said to the group as he waddled alongside the mural, narrating it. Of course it's a human. All of us jerked in reaction to hearing him speak so clearly. Kororo, unfazed, continued. Are you telling me the firewolf ate the human? As if to signal the end of his story, Kororo cried out as he usually did. I am confused. Kororo, what's gotten into you all of a sudden? He seems different somehow, as if coming here woke something inside of him. Also, are these werecats like Dromi? On a whim I glanced once more at the mural where I begin to pass. Various beasts and men illustrated in all manners of situations. Each depiction I noticed had wolves donned in flames, connecting each one.
もしやコロロはこの壁画に描かれている内容に沿い関連性のある単語を発しているのでは？
確かにそんな様子だったね。絵に合わせてわざわざ移動してたし。
随分と古い祠だ。イグニス、何か心当たりは？
知らねえよ。壁画の意味もさっぱりわかんねえ。古代文字も薄すぎてよく見えねえし。どっかのガキが刻んだただの落書きじゃねえの。
I think the pictures look too purposeful for that to be the case.
あのさ、コロロがさっき発した単語をちょっと俺たちの喋り方に寄せて順に言い直してみない？
あ？なんでわざわざ？
いや、君との関連性がなんか気になってものは試しってことで頼むよ。
そこまで言うなら別にいいけどよ。
But how should we rephrase it? I replayed Kororo's presentation in my head. If I could summon what exactly Kororo said, I could imitate the words for everyone. Far past Bisha, one day human came.
シンプルだよね。昔のベスティアって意味だ。次は
ある日、人間が来た。大昔に人間がこのベスティアに訪れたことがある。
そうそう、そんな感じでどんどんちゃんと文章になるように訳してみよう。イル、悪いけどコロロの発言を全部遡ってくれる？
はい、了解しました。
He immediately obliged Mishi's request. He began to repeat Kororo's exact words effortlessly. Far past Bisha, one day human came, but Bisha already. Firewolf there, wolf sleep. Wolf human, wake up and food, lots eat. Wolf are Vinitru, Tigrish, Kanch. Ignis wolf, food, eat, become. I mean, Kororo is trying to tell us that Ignis needs to eat something specific to I'm not sure. If we do what we did earlier to interpret Kororo's meaning.
はるか昔のベスティアに人間
元は元のことかな。ならベスティアにはもともと炎の狼が存在し眠っていた。
眠っていた狼は人間が来たことにより目を覚ました。
狼はビニトル、ティグリスは監視。
Ignis is a wolf. When he eats, these qualities are enhanced. Is that right?
だいたいそんな感じだと思うよ。
炎の狼とは壁画に書かれているこの狼のことで間違いないだろうな。
最初はいかにも伝承って感じな話だったけどよ。なんで途中から餌の話になんだ。ベスティアに来た人間がその狼にご親切に飯を作ってやったってか。
その詳細はわかんないけど、いや、この狼呼び方といい共通点といい、もしかしてイグニスの先祖にあたる魔獣なんじゃないの？
Oh, that's right. The fact that it refers to what appear to be ancient firewalls aligns with Ignis perfectly. It even mentions the meeting.
現にコロロは狼はビニトルとはっきり告げている。
Mr. Reno let out a sigh in contemplation and placed his hand beneath his chin.
人間がイグニスの先祖に食事を与えてあげたから子孫のビニトルも食事が可能になったってこと。
適当に言ったんだが。
しかしその先から急に話が通らなくなってしまっている。
イグニスが狼となるって言われても、彼はすでにもともとビニトルだし、その上ティグリスが監視って。
It watches as in watches over someone? Or watches and will accidentally destroy the cave? So all of you will get stuck there and possibly die? You know, Dromi's out there somewhere. He's the last werecat. Perhaps it referred to a werecat companion. Maybe Dromi knows something since he's a werecat? And as soon as I said that... Cold! Suddenly a freezing cold drop of water splashed onto my forehead. Whoa, that scared me. I suspected some of the flames radiating from Ignis' body melted the ice on the ceiling. I tested my hypothesis by glancing upward, but when I did... Ah, look, there's a mural up there too. As my voice bounced around the stony cave, everyone looked up in unison. What we saw was... a giant firewolf, in other words, Ignis' ancestors. It was a majestic, breathtaking depiction. It appeared to be swallowing what looked like other beasts and humans, one after the other. Was it? We lowered our heads and looked around. All of a sudden, Mishia's face, which seemed hopeful and cheery just a moment ago, became stern.
そういえばビニトルは昔からあらゆる魔獣から迫害され数を減らしちゃったんだよね。
ああ、妙竹林な伝承のせいでな。それがどうした？い
や、よく考えたらそれっておかしくない。君以外のビニトルも能力から見ればそれなりに強力な魔獣なはずだ。つまり昔は数だって多かったはずだね。まるで檻のような氷に閉ざされたあんな辺境へと追いやられていたのか。それは
そりゃ決まってるじゃないか。
I knew it!
古の魔獣たちがこの世界を守るためにビニトルを閉じ込めたか。
There he is, Mr. Oh, I can't do
俺たち
anything.
ティグリスはその檻の監視役として
I'm just a poor little werecat. Mama. Suddenly a voice echoed from the entrance. An ominous interruption dotted by footsteps. I knew it. Kororo stood in front of the mural, growling at the figure in the dark as it if to ward them away. There was only one person at whom I had ever known Kororo to grow like that. The shadow appeared, opening his arms in a wide and exaggerated manner as if to welcome us.
さあさあ皆さん、よくぞたどり着きました。
Wow! Are you kidding me? I never would have
俺たち
guessed.
ティグリスが数千年守り続け、その割にはあっさり忘れちまった最悪の歴史を示す誇られた。
He raised his voice, beaming with what appeared to be pride. What happened? Weren't you back at the Firewolf stronghold?
ああ、それについてはご心配なく。
There it is.
あっちでの仕事はもう全部終わらせてきたっすから。
If you're going to go full... This was my plan all along on me. I'm going to... Domi said as much with a wide but disconcerting smile. Something about him unsettled me, something I couldn't place. But as I said as much to him bluntly. You're scaring me. The waghead stared back at Kororo, who continued to growl, and he let out a heavy sigh.
にしても残念っす。本当なら一世一代の大舞台で兄貴に全てを話すつもりだったのに、まさか俺がここで計画についてつぶやいてる時、コロロがここに居合わせてたとはね。さては群れとはぐれた原因ってここに迷い込んだからっす。
Ignis stepped forward as if in Kororo's defense despite still processing the big reveal.
いい加減にしろドローミ。てめえさっきから何を意味わかんねえことばっかほざいてやがる。計画ってのは何のことだ。それにさっきのこの世界を守るために魔獣たちが俺らビニトルをこの辺境に閉じ込めた。
If Dromi's the one responsible for killing Kororo's parents and everyone else, I'm gonna cry.
そのまんまの意味っすよ。
Dromi offered a casual rebuttal as if it was any other conversation.
要はアルムムたちが今行おうとしてることと同じっす。まあくだらねえ雑魚魔獣っすけど、真実を知った奴らは奴らなりにこのベスティアを守ろうとしてたってことっすね。イグニスという未来の大災悪から。
だからその意味がわかんねえっつってんだ、このアホとら。下手な役者気取りなんぞしねえでシンプルに質問に答えやがれ。
って言われても皆さんが訳したこととその天井の壁画に描かれていることが全ての真実っすよ。
Normally, Dromi would shrink or run at the sound of Ignis' threats, but he didn't bat an eyelash, nor did he flinch as Ignis screamed in anger. He was no longer the coward hiding behind Ignis, relying upon him for strength. He never was.
他ならぬ尊敬する兄貴からのご要望、お望み通りシンプルにお答えするっす。
He's just
いいっすか？
playing.
天井に描かれているビニトルの先祖、その魔獣は、かつてこのベスティアであらゆる魔獣と人間をほふり、世界を破滅寸前まで追いやった化け物なんすよ。
That was...
これで分かっただろう。ベスティアでただ一人の魔獣でも何でもねえ。
Ignis recalled a fated conversation.
まさかイグニスの暴走本能って。
そう、その通り。この化け物の子孫ゆえの本能っす。とはいえビニトルの中でも特に色濃く化け物の血を継いでいる兄貴にしか起こらないことっすけど。
ドローミ、その口ぶりからして
He's probably been
イ
festering
グニ
it.
スの暴走本能について気がついていたのか。
もちろんっす。兄貴のことならなんでも把握してるっすよ。過去兄貴が行った大虐殺の時も実はバッチリ見てたっす。
His confession rang as words of betrayal to Ignis.
全部知ってて黙ってやがったのか。
I know it. Why? For what purpose?
教えてもいいっすけど、それよりいいんすか？ビニトルたちを孤立させちゃって。
I hate you.
コロロの仲間探しの時の騒動みたいに、あそこにいい狩り場があるって俺が
I hate you.
また情報を流しちゃったっすよ。
I hate you. I hate you. No, he said as much with a chuckle. Ines' face dropped and he immediately sprinted towards the shrine at the entrance. Ines, wait.
追いかけるよ。イグニスを一人にしちゃダメだ。
おっと、お客さんが舞台に上がるのはマナー違反っす。
Shut the fuck up. Dromi lowered his shoulders as his own cue. Of course. Then the deranged band of minotaurs came rushing into the cave.
ことね、コロロを抱えて下がれ。
いや、それよりも一層逃げてくれた方がいいかもね。ここは君たちが暴れるには狭すぎる。下手したら彼女ごと巻き添えだ。
どうかいる。弱って戦えない君もやばい。
はい、その程度でしたら。ことね、急いでコロロを。
Sure. As soon as I wrapped Kororo in my arms, Il carried me in turn. Just as the Minotaur charged at us from behind. Il kicked at the ground. He flew, nearly scraping the ceiling on the way out so we could escape from the cave. You stupid fucking... I hate it.
さーて、じゃ、常連さんたちが立ち回ってる間に、俺も
Hey, Dromi.
するっすかね。
I know something better than the choker you have on your neck right now. You know what we could put there? My own two hands. To strangle you.
楽しみだな。
Hehehe.
もうすぐっすよ。
You are not reviving some kind of ancient beast. By traumatizing my poor guy Ignis even more. I dashed towards the stronghold, noticing the setting sun plunging Bestia into darkness. I alone illuminated the darkness as I cut through the frigid air, running as fast as my legs would take me. The flames covering my body flared wildly, mirroring the chase that stormed inside me. The firewolves had suffered enough, especially at my hands, and I couldn't let their numbers dwindle anymore. I've been lied to my entire life. I was feared, I was used. It all felt heavy on my shoulders for sure. I felt betrayed, but even so, they were still my king, the last of my people. This time I would protect them. This time I would save their lives. All my hopes and convictions. Motherfucker. Disintegrated in my palm. My eyes were fixated on the scene, a familiar sight I had long since buried. Huts and bodies charred as the firewolf torches waned in the distance. Blood and soot soaked the snow. Not a single firewolf was spared. The man I called Uncle all these years tumbled on the ground, disposed of, forgotten. What I saw there instead were... The Minotaurs hacking at their opponents relentlessly, showing no mercy to whomever stood in their way. Their eyes, they were clouded, disgusting. As soon as they noticed my presence, their eyes bulged open. My vision went red. My heart was ready to burst from my chest. Searing heat covered my body, a sensation that radiated from my body's core. If I were to give in to this heat... Oh, don't do it. There could only be one outcome. Oh, don't do it. In the future, violence doesn't have to be answer. I want to believe in a future where we live in peace.
俺自身を裏切るな。
Okay, so apparently he inherited some kind of monster power from this ancient firewolf who once apparently like killed beasts and humans and everything, so they drove the firewolves to extinction and then to the border of everything, so everyone else could live in peace. And Romy is somehow trying to revive that power in Ingus because he seems to be the only firewolf who has inherited it for some reason. So while we were busy following Kororo, he sent the Minotaurs to the current firewolf stronghold, and I set fire to everything and are killing everyone in sight. And he's trying not to succumb to the power rush, I guess. But it was useless. I was submitting to my base self. Ah yes, I remember now. Each time that I lost my sanity or came close to doing so, it involved the smell of blood. No, an appetizing aroma filled my nostrils, consumed by my waking thought. My rampage instinct lay dormant inside me, crying out its cravings. It commanded me, it wanted me to feed. Oh, upon every living being inside. No! Eel managed to dodge the Minotaur's swinging arms one after the other. We flew out of the cave as I hugged Kororo tighter against me, and we were lifted into the cold Beastian sky.
なんとか逃げ切れましたか。
Just as Eel squinted his eyes, we heard flames erupt in the distance. To neither of our surprise, we glanced over to the direction of the sound. Right beneath us, the firewolf stronghold glowed a faint shade of crimson. Don't tell me, was it?
他の魔獣に襲撃を受けたようですね。おそらくイグニスもあの場にいるのでしょう。
Eel, we've got to go there too. We have to go
申し
there
訳
too.
ありませんが、その願いは聞き入れられません。
Excuse me?
今の私にあなたを護衛できる能力は残っていません。
No?
この
But
大
Ignis...
丈夫です。彼の実力ならば
No,
敗
no.
北することはありえないでしょう。
Bruh.
ですか。
Eel's eyes shot open. We felt an intense ray of heat, one that could normally occur in such a frozen world, coming from below. Eel let out a sharp gasp, shifting his weight mid-flight to avoid it, but his trembling wings were slow to react. A giant storm of flames surrounded us. Eh? Eel's wings were exposed and burned by the raging flames exploding below. I heard Eel cry out in agony before my vision became suddenly blurry. Fried chicken! No, not fried chicken time! We dropped into the flaming maelstrom, down into the firewolf stronghold. Crunch. Hey kids, you want some broken bones? Ugh. A small distance away, Kororo lay there, passed out. We fell from quite a height, but somehow both Kororo and I survived the fall. Luckily, neither of us were seriously hurt. I spotted Eel lying unconscious beside me. It seemed as though his quick reaction was more than enough to spare us our lives, for which I felt immense gratitude.
申し訳ありません。
I thought he lay there
今
unconscious.
はありませんか。
I'm alright, but you're...
この程度なら人間界に戻れば回復します。
Yikes! How is this game? It's like 12 plus. At Eel's prompting, I surveyed around us. Judging by our immediate surroundings, we landed within the firewolf stronghold. However, the horror began to set in as I recognized no part of the secluded, humble stronghold in the chaos. It was a massacre, a force that left no stone unturned, all-consuming and deadly. Oh, that's a CG I don't want. A flaming tempest that ate all in its path. I watched as red sparks bounced off of armor swallowed by snow. The white wonderland was painted with colors of a grisly, brutal nature. A hot wind fanned by the flames carried with them a strong stench of iron, the scent of which wafted from the trampled corpses lining the snow. the center of it all was... Ooh. I'm looking respectfully. Also fearfully, but mostly respectfully. The curd, heavy-handed, but most of all kind Ignis. Yeah! Kind! He and his aura shone a brilliant red. It was as if he was bathed in the blood of his foes. But how could that be? Relative to his ghastly appearance, there weren't too many corpses. What happened to all the others? Where did the blood come from? Little by little, I urged my trembling self onward to look further up. The answer was right there. His mouth. Thick, vicious trails of blood dripped from the corners of his lips. When I looked closer, it looked as though he bit onto something into his mouth, and after chewing a couple of times, he gulped it down. Without having to think, my instincts told me exactly what I was looking at. Choked with fear, I could hardly muster a loud scream, but he managed to pick up on what little sound I did make. After subtly twitching his nose as if in reaction to my scent, his dreamy eye started over to me, a sharp, focused glance. His eye... He eyed me with a predatory gaze, like it was a delicious meal. Just as Ignis took a step forward, readying to lunge at me, the surrounding snow around him melted and evaporated as if devoured by him. I gasped out of panic and his body burst into flame. Eel stepped in front of me, but he had already used up all of his strength and was at his body's limit. He stood in front of the menacing wolf who had marched up to us without fear. The wolf laughed savagely. Ah! He dug his claws into his defenseless prey. No. Splashes of red dispersed through the air. Eel's slender body was shredded and eviscerated by the frightening excuse me! His angelic body dropped face down into his own pool of blood. Hey yo, this game is like... USK... No. What's it called in English? USK? 12? What the fuck? Blood soaked his body and drenched the clothing around his inanimate self. He fell atop the crumpled remains of his black and white feathers. No! There was no hint of color or familiarity in Ignis' eyes as the wolf looked coldly at his comrade. Peggy, thank you. Though I'm not sure if a Peggy 12 exists. Is it Peggy 13? I don't know. I couldn't even scream. No, alas, I was falling apart. I was ready to collapse. Reality was too intense to face. I wanted nothing more than to cook for us. My teeny tiny dream, the small fantasy I had for the two of us. Baby, no. Ignis reached his hand over Eel, who had laid there collapsed in his blood. What are you doing? What's that sound? No. Ignis wrapped his fingers around the angel's neck, lifting him up with ease. Then he opened his mouth wide. He slowly pulled Eel's unconscious body towards his gaping maw. It was easy to predict what he was going to do next. No!
俺はよ、その価値観を変えたいと思ってベスティアのトップに立ったんだ。俺が誰の血も流さず魔獣の頂点に立てば少しぐらいは影響を受ける魔獣が出てくるかと思った。
Hello? Please don't do this. Stop. Don't throw away who you are. Don't abandon your dream. Just before Ignis sank his fangs into Eel's flesh, he tossed the angel aside. I felt compelled to protect Eel and I stood before Ignis with my arms outstretched. Stop it, stop it, stop it! Come back, Ignis, this is not you! This isn't why you trained your entire life, is it? I cried out at Ignis, trying to appeal to him with the first words that came to mind, but... all my pleading could accomplish was redirecting the firewolf's ire toward me instead. Ah! Interrupted by a severe throwing pain, Ignis sank his razor-sharp fangs into my arm, but I realized it a moment too late as my own blood splattered onto his face. Adrenaline numbed the pain, but my head spun. The only thing rooting me to my current predicament was the dreadful sound of my flesh being ripped apart. My pleading voice never reached him. Ignis only sipped and licked the blood trickling down my arm and... He ripped a piece of flesh off me! Hello? We're going for the happy ending, you know? Like, I'm just... I want to... Just so you know, you guys, we have done everything correctly so far. We are going toward the happy ending. After neutralizing the Minotaurs, we hurried toward the Firewolf stronghold. What Misha and the rest of the party witnessed was... far-reaching patches of blood. Corpses thrown into haphazard piles, the relentless flames surrounding them, and Eel who lied on the snow unconscious. His wings were torn and bald, and his atrocious injuries dyed his hair and clothing in blood. To the side we saw him bite into Kotona's arm, ripping off her flesh. It was one of our fellow Enchanté regulars, our friend, or so we thought. Ignis. Our once thought-to-be ally wiped the splattered blood off his face, shooting a fearless glance in our direction. As we stood there stunned, the quickest to react to the tragic scene was Canis. The swing of Canis' mighty sword blew Ignis back with a cannon's force. Under normal circumstances, the sheer power of Canis' attack would have torn Ignis' torso in half, but Ignis summoned a wall of flames to dull the impact of the knight's incoming strike, sparing himself from harm. Ignis moved purely on instinct. He twitched, realizing the path to his prey was obstructed, and showed his fangs. Yikes. Ignis kicked at the ground, lunging at a speed too fast for the naked eye. And... Kotona, freed from Ignis' grasp, fell to her knees in excruciating pain. Blood begins to gush from her wounds, which she clamps with her free hand. The blood shows no signs of stopping. Canis and Ignis, meanwhile, were locked in a lightning-quick exchange of blows no human could see. Oh my god. Misha and Rindo sprinted over to the two wounded members, hastily tending to their injuries. They eyed each other and rushed in. Rindo went to Kotone and Misha went to Io. They first cast a simple barrier to shield them from any impact from the duo. Misha clutched Eel's blood-soaked body in his arms and cried out his name. No soft-spoken words escaped the angel's lips and his breaths began to slow. Oh my god, what the fuck? Meanwhile... no small amount of blood began to pour down from Kotona's slender arm. Kotona was succumbing to traumatic shock from the punching magnitude of pain, and her medic Rindo, whose brow began to sweat as the pressure mounted, hesitated, asking her to remain calm. What kind of first aid will you apply to a flesh wound? Rindo fell back onto a practical solution, eyeing and ripping his handkerchief from his person to fashion a makeshift clotter. Witnessing this, Misha... My destroyer, I do not possess the power to ease Kotona and Eel's pains. He gently stashed away his regret and set Eel upon the cold ground delicately. Then he switched gears, honing in on the sole mission to stop Ignis. He raised his hand. Oh my god, what the fuck? Try as he might, Canis' blade could not penetrate either of Ignis' blazing fists. Although Canis' footwork was deftly tested by the pace of Ignis' heightened beastly movements, Canis blocked each of his foe's punches with ease, making the tense duel an even one. In the midst of all this, he did as instructed and leapt back. Left open, Ignis reacted by immediately racing towards Canis, but... Once Misha barked out his command, a spell was cast and a large shadow swelled over Ignis' head. The shadow belonged to a giant iceberg, which soon was flung at an alarming velocity, ready to crush the body of its target upon impact. However, with the powers of his attuned reflexes, Ignis ignited the flames covering his body movements before impact. Hello? The flames burned at a temperature so intense the whole icy meteor nearly melted, dispersing it into shattered chunks. But nevertheless, the immense impact and blast from the heavy ball of ice was felt. Oh. At last, Ignis' eyes returned to normal, indicating he had returned. But for how long? You will not tell me that one bong with a giant iceberg to his head will make him return. It was loud. My head was being knocked around by some deafening explosion. Sharp bits of icicle floated down, tickling my skin. The red in my vision went away, reverting everything back to normal. I winced at a massive surge of shame. It occurred to me that I had no idea where I'd been in the last couple hours. What was I doing? Where was I? Oh, fucking boy. Just as my vision cleared up and focus returned. If someone hit me on the head with a giant iceberg, then I don't think I do any thinking at all. Like, Candace was the first to pop into vision. Oh my god! My breath left me as tall flames burned behind Candace and the smell of smoke stung my nose. I refused to believe it. My throat tensed up. I couldn't speak. I looked around. Uh-oh. Bodies of my kin and the corpses of the minotaurs were stacked atop each other. Right in front of me, the tip of Candace's sword was pointed, shaky and cautious. Michi and Rindo seemed guarded too, laying next to Michi's feet. I saw Eel mangled and torn up, covered in blood, and the one Rindo held in his arms was... Kotone clenched the patched up spot on her arm and her face filled with terror. As soon as our eyes met, I reflexively gulped down something I was still in my mouth. Tasty. Why did it smell and taste of iron? What did I say? What did I say earlier about you going? I'm going to kill you. Aniki, I'm going to fucking destroy you. A pair of feet tapped and slyly around the massacred ground, approaching me. Dromi arrived, and unlike how Kotone looked at me fearfully, I have two hands. I shall use both of them for murder. Bitch. Dromi's eyes glowed with intense awe, dumbstruck as the flames towered behind my bloody body. My hands are ready for everyone. My hands are rated D, specifically for Dromi. No, D for death! Death for Dromi. I watched Dromi for a minute, then tossed him a throwaway question. Rated D for that bitch.
Yes! 大正解! さすがは兄貴、勘が鋭いっすね。いやーでも邪魔だとばかり思ってた人間がこんなとこで役に立つとは。
Listen, I'm excited to see how this will play out and how this is going to be a happy ending. But if it turns out in every route it's just like, oh, someone you get along with to some extent just suddenly turns out to be actually evil. Well, in Venia's case, they were not evil per se, but they used us for a scheme we could have, you know, worked together on. And Dromi's just straight up, I want to see the world burn.
魔獣の血の匂いを嗅いだり浴びるだけじゃ計画がもっと長引いてたっすから。
He knew what blood Kotona's body
それより
jolted.
も話が脱線してるっすよ。そろそろ現実を直視した方がいい。
I don't know the Joker's backstory.
いいっすか兄貴。あんたお優しい常連仲間をあんな風にズタボロにした挙句、そこの女の肉をその牙で引きちぎって、それはもう美
You
味
want
しそう
to
に
watch the world burn? Okay, fair.
食っちゃったんすよ。
I will devour you. He accused Ignis with a deranged smile. His ridiculous claim, it seemed, was the answer we were looking for all along. A beast that eats. Stashed by the threatening veil of my ability to rampage was another, more terrifying ability which I alone had. After all, the miniatures had to drug themselves just to make an attempt on my life. The truth was, no one knew why the firewalls disappeared all those years ago, but the cost of learning all of this was just too great. Fueled by nothing more than rage, I swung my fists at Dromi, but despite how many swipes it took at Dromi, he evaded each blow by a hair. But they weren't perfect dodges. I managed to yank his favorite bandana with my fist and it glided to the ground. Something weird happened. It was as if Dromi's expression changed at the drop of his bandana. Oh, wait, here's a scar on his eyebrow.
やっぱアンシャンテにいたふぬけたあんたは偽物だ。最悪の血を継ぐ命ぐらいの化け物はこうでなくちゃ。
What's your fucking problem? A cannibalistic monster. The words hit me in the gut. It was a time I accepted my destiny. I caused the destruction of this place. I dropped to my knees. The crimson-stained snow and sobering stench of charred iron. To think all of those who fester inside of me. I tried my best to purge my body with all, but I couldn't. Despair, loss, rage. These emotions are shoved down my throat, ready to burst on a whim. I roar so loud the heavens quake, but there to make a mockery of it all is, of course.
さあ、こんなくだらない殺戮の世界はもう終わる。これからはあんたの時代だよ。イグニス・カリブンクルス。いや、古より復活したすべての命を食らい尽くす生きる最悪バナル。
The heretic of doom had resurrected in fire. Uh-huh. Oh wow, would you look at that? After 2 hours we finally actually get the 4th chapter. I'm gonna continue. Don't talk in that sing-song voice to me.
それは数千年以上前に起きた最悪の物語。
One day in a frozen place where ferocious beasts lived, suddenly out of nowhere pesky beings called humans began to appear. Most of them perished from the unforgiving climate or were helpless to the demonic beasts, but a slim portion survived. However,
oh, hold on. He's reading out loud himself.
Never mind.
後にバナルと呼ばれる山をも越える巨大な炎の狼が存在していました。
In those days, Vana was fabled to be a lord among beasts, capable of devouring the world. To stave off demise from his insatiable appetite, the beast was put into a deep, deep and indefinite hibernation.
不幸なことにそれを起こしてしまったのが生き残った人間たち。
Unfortunate. As a result,
目覚めたバナルは空腹を満たそうと暴れ回り始めました。魔獣も人間も関係なく目に入ったすべての命を自らの餌として食らい尽くしながら、
wartime.
特に人間の血肉はバナルにとって最高に美味しい大好物とも言える味でした。
At least for a little while, sadly for the big bad wolf, humans with the superior brains formed an alliance with the tribe of beasts. While they paid an immense sacrifice, they managed to subjugate Vanna. You're coming over to skin me yourself! Together we have 4 hands. However, Vanna passed his legacy, his vicious fiery appetite, to his descendants. These people became known as the Venator, wolves with the blood of the heretic of doom. Naturally, fearing another incident, the beasts tried to exterminate the Venator, but the Venator only need blood to rampage, thus the beasts could not stop them. With little choice, they were chased off to remote lands with another clan, the Tigers, as their guardians. Eventually, these people would die out. Your faults, they already default troll me.
その後のベスティアの根幹となる弱者排除の戦社会を
Ah,
作り上
look.
げた。
So there is one thing to blame, like Ignis said 2 chapters ago, and he was like, if there's one thing in the past that is to blame for the way we have to live, then... Well, I don't remember what he said he'd do, but I remember he said if there's one thing, and there is one thing. Then after several thousand years, in other words the present day, as time passed, so too did the memory. The incident was long since forgotten. The Venator were thin in numbers from persecution. Bestia's lands were reduced to a battleground where the strong always conquered the weak, and it remains so to this day.
殺し、血の匂いを流す旅。
Shut the fuck up.
イグニスというバナルの血を継ぐ災厄を呼び起こすという事実に誰も気づかない。
But you do.
おしまい。
Why do you know? Huh? Come on, don't be shy. Tell me, why do you know? Come on. Why the fuck are we back home? Hello? That faithful day never left me. Dromi's tease of a story about the history of Anna just wouldn't leave me. Hello! An ancestor of Venator like Ignis had nearly destroyed the world before through predation, a gigantic life-devouring wolf that craved all forms of life. Afterward, the Wagcat put up no resistance and was apprehended by Canis easily. They sent him to the GBM. Aha! Each time I revisited the memory, the gash on my arm wrapped under several thick bandages aged in immense pain. Several days had passed. How does that make sense? I'm sorry, but like... Okay. Fuck it. I'm just gonna continue reading. After we somehow managed to return home, I was immediately taken to hospital. Over the course of the days, my wound was treated. Fortunately, the injury hadn't damaged any of the nerves, but there was no ignoring the big hole in my arm, all thanks to his fangs. Although I got to avoid surgery, that scar would stay with me my whole life, at least according to the doctors. How did they explain to the doctors that you'd have when there was someone in far worse condition than me, an angel marred by heavy injuries? He had been in a coma the whole time, resting in his bed in an empty room at Enchanté. He hadn't awoken once. And After Ignis had lost control, doing something which could never be undone, Misha and the others placed a barrier over the shrine, along with the history of Anna, and sealed him away. Okay. He made no effort to resist. He hung his head low, a husk of himself. How is this? How is this supposed to turn into a happy ending? Everyone had gathered at the cafe, recounting the sequence of events to one another. A funny story. What have I said in it? Naturally, the conversation was a solemn one, and even Kadia, who wasn't there, became pale.
彼女の手当ても終わって、ようやく腰を据えて話し合えるようにはなったけど、
What the fuck?
最悪な状況に変わりはないね。
いる。
Oh. Misha shakes his head back and forth quietly, having watched the angel from the morning until the time we were gathered.
ダメだね。傷が塞がってはまた開くの繰り返し。意識が戻る気配もない。
What? Il's wounds were supposed to heal as soon as we returned to the human world. He mentioned as much to me in Bisha. Misha picks up on my disappointment and continues in a hushed tone of voice.
普通ならもう動ける程度にはなってるはずなんだ。ただ今回は傷がひどすぎる。前日までの疲労も含めてイル自体がかなり弱っていたこともあるし、肉体を再生するための代用エネルギーが人間界のものじゃ足りないんだ。
That's not good. Ah! No way.
それほど正気を失ったイグニスの攻撃が苛烈だったということか。もしあの時琴音がかばわねば、イルも。
他の魔獣と同じくイグニスに食われてたってこと。
My shoulders tremble out of reflex.
つまり俺たちが今まで暴走だと思ってたイグニスの本当の危険性は命ぐらいの最悪の狼バナルの末裔ゆえの捕食本能だったわけだね。
ああ、おそらく彼は
Can you stop using words I don't know? Refers to genetic inheritance and appearance of traits held by ancestors of skipping many generations. Atavism can also refer to ancestor reversion.
バナルの血と力をかなり濃く継いで生まれてしまったんだろうね。だからこそヴィニトルでも唯一飲食が可能だった。
その本能が目覚めるよう裏で糸を引いていたのがドローミという。
あいつ。
The moment his name is mentioned, Kadia clenched his fists in frustration.
してやられたね。
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be happy that we called it like really early, or that it is so obvious that it would be Dromi.
ドローミはイケシャーシャーと味方面しつつアルムムや他の魔獣にイグニスの情報を流し彼と多くの魔獣を戦わせることでその血の匂いからイグニスの空腹を煽ってきたんだ。
アルムムにはバナルへの危険性だけを吹き込み、その本能が目覚める条件は都合よく伏せていたのだろう。
Predation instinct, a true danger held by Ignis. Smelling the scent of blood takes him a step closer to turning into Varna.
魔獣は弱者や多種族には容赦がないけれど、身内には甘いところがあるからね。自分たちの子やつがいを守るために彼らはなりふり構わずイグニスを討伐しようとしたんだろう。
One thing explained why the Minotaur had behaved in such a reckless way. Turns out Mikado had already uncovered the thing eating away at the sanity. It was a drug, the origins of which were unknown. Traces of it were found administered to the Minotaur. It warmed non-human minds. The culprit was almost undeniably Dromi. Dromi, he's actually a fanatic of calamity, trying to return Ignis to Varna through predation. His clownish, small fry behavior was all an act. Who would have fucking guessed? Which also means the person who flung me into the gate to be had to be him as well. The forgotten item at the time was an outright lie. My guess is that he passed through the GPM's wormhole and slipped into Enchanté through the gate. From there he did his deed, hoping to kill me and make it look like an accident.
くそ、あいつ何が目的なんだ。
目的ならば大体は察することができる。あの時の言葉。
さあ、こんなくだらない殺戮の世界はもう終わる。これからはあんたの時代だよ。いや、古より復活したすべての命を食らい尽くす生きる最悪。
Oops.
ドロービの目的はおそらくイグニスに先祖返りをさせること、すなわちバナルに戻すことだろう。
Why? Although I did a little more than squeak weekly, I might add, I finally managed to join the conversation. What's the meaning of it all?
ドローミ本人も含めてベスティア中の魔獣が食われる。はっきり言って毒なんてかけらもないよね。
Out of consideration for me, Misha picked up where I left off, helping me make my
そ
point.
のあたりどうなの、リンド。ドローミは何か白状した？
それが尋問にはかけているんだけど、案の定こっちをおちょくってばかりでね。
The event had been clearly upsetting Rino.
尋問自体は続けてみるけど、彼からこれ以上の情報が引き出せるかどうかは。
なあ、この先イグニスはどうなるの？まさかこのままドローミの思惑通りにバナルとかにならないよな。
No, he's probably stewing in self-hatred now. In the past, Kadia's stubbornness was known to clash with Ignis, so the two rarely saw eye to eye, but the situation felt so dire, even Kadia expressed his concern for Ignis. As for Kadia's question, the adults in the room, Mishi and company, shifted in their
今回
seats.
の件でイグニス、アルムムたちを皆殺しにして捕食。さらに人間の肉の味まで知ってしまった。
完全にバナルとしての目覚めの条件は揃った状態だね。
ああ、このままではイグニスは。
そんな。
Kadia was incensed, frustrated by the situation Ignis was left in. I, on the other hand, could hardly utter an opinion of my own. I needed to say something, think. But despite my best efforts,
ともあれ、我々がイグニスのためにできることがないか、少しでも模索していくとしよう。ただ、琴音はしばらく
don't leave me out of this. Huh?
腕の傷も癒えていないだろう。それに
心の方もね。
Thanks.
イグニスの話を聞くのもつらい。いや、怖いなら無理はしないでいいんだ。
今後の対応については僕たちの方で考えておくよ。マスター業の方もお休みにすべきだ。
As I feared, they read my mood on my face. Whenever Ignis' name came up in conversation, my body trembled. Kadia looked back at me. His eyes traveled between my eyes and my arm, inferring enough to form an opinion. I knew there was more to it, though. I noticed they were talking about actual details, nothing about what really happened. It was true. My presence here was an obstacle to the more pertinent conversation at hand. Yeah, thanks. So I thanked them for their responses, apologizing for taking up their time. I bowed my head and headed up to my room. And then I eavesdropped. No, I didn't, apparently. Okay. As soon as the door shut behind me, I plopped into my bed and took Kororo into my arms. Baby. Not out of sadness, but fear. Ignis. Each time I heard his name, something reminded me of him. The fear of being devoured possessed me and I trembled. Until that tragedy, I cherished him. I never once felt intimidated by him. I wanted for us to be together. Oh no. Crying here into my pillow would do nothing. That much I knew, but why? Why did this have to happen, Ignis? Fear pulled tears from me like a conductor. All I could do was cry out in grief to mourn the injustice of it all. Afterward, according to Mishi, who had stopped by my room to brief me on the rest of the talk, they agreed they needed to strengthen the barrier that encased the shrine plus Ignis. To do that, however, Mishi and the others had to find some way to heal Eel in his current state. If we could so much as take him to the heavenly world, he would heal just fine, but fallen angels weren't exactly welcome. Normal angels hunt fallen angels for sport, and it wasn't worth the risk on Eel's life. But it was good enough as a last resort. In the meantime, the regulars searched high and low for ways to improve his condition. I feel like they just very casually slipped something in there. Like, oh, normal angels hunt fallen angels for sport. Excuse me? I saw Rindo. He was giving the sole pleasure of interrogating Dromi. However, even if either endeavor came to something, neither did anything to help Ignis directly, to help manage his dangerous powers. Due to other wisdom, he has the possibility to become the Wolf of Calamity Varna. Despite wishing not to kill, the scent of blood makes him go wild, and many demon beasts fall prey to his hunger. Oh god. I very much dislike that there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this goddamn route. I didn't think it was this long. I sit in this icy shrine all banged up. I got nothing to do but hang my head and listen to my thoughts echo. After that howl of despair, the bastard Dromi had the balls to come up to my face and tell me, Varna, ancestor of the Venator, he said, that I have inherited his blood, which makes me a world-devouring monster. Apparently I'm a legendary beast reincarnate, one that makes me hungry for flesh. The idea is so repulsive I want to gag, but nothing comes out of my stomach. In other words, I've already digested their flesh and blood and absorbed it all into my body. The thought sinks in. I can't help but feel disgusted by my own body, which until now I'd been proud to show off as a symbol of my strength. I see. No wonder they call me a monster. It goes beyond eating food for humans. I devoured my fellow beasts, people that could have been kin while they lived and breathed. Breathed.
弱い存在がなすすべもなく命を散らしていく。その後のベスティアの根幹となる弱者排除の戦社会を作り上げたのです。
どうして俺の故郷はこんな残酷な世界になったんだろう。もし遥か昔その元凶になった奴がいたとしたなら、俺はそいつを一生恨む。
はははは。
何が不殺だ。何を恨んでんだよ俺は。んなことほざいていた俺がこの残酷な世界の象徴そのものだったんじゃねえか。
Every time I see the mural, I'm petrified. I know that one day the drawing will look less like a drawing and more like a mirror. Am I destined to become Vayner no matter what? You could go lick some of these ice crystals, maybe it'll help. What the fuck? Until now I had no real need for food, so any cravings I had were superficial, but my stomach let out a terrible growl in the darkness, a desperate hungry cry. I bent backwards and hugged my arms around my torso. I clenched my teeth fighting the desire, but it was useless. I bog into the darkness. Ah, I'm hungry. In times like these, the one to feed me was... Kotone with a chunk of her arm missing. Ah! Well, when her face came to mind, my hunger worsens and I can't help but gulp uncontrollably. Her flesh was perfectly delicious. Oh god, Jesus. A monster hides in my brain. It's part of me. When I picture it, it laughs as her blood drips from my mouth. I stopped breathing. I gripped my stomach and continued to suffer in denial, surrounded by darkness. But, in a way, I was too late. Her flowing blood, I could never forget the look of fear in her eyes as they burned into mine. More importantly, I can't believe I attacked the person I most wanted to protect. I became a monster. I devoured part of her body. As if that wasn't bad enough, I hurt one of her most favorite guests, Eel. Hell, I tried to eat him. Consensual war. Kotuna trusted me when no one else would. She vouched for me. She really believed I'd be worth it. But it was all for nothing. I gave in to my wretched hunger. I betrayed her. I'm sure I'd never get to see that smile of hers glow again. If that's the case... Oh my fucking god. I kicked the idea for a bit in my head until I decided to use my own fist to do the deed. But as soon as I placed it over my heart to rip it out of my chest, I'm dominated by another feeling, a rabid beastly hunger, one that chips away at me until it satisfies its craving. You know, ripping out your heart is going to be kind of hard. You could jump into that icy water. See what happens. Nobody in their right mind would want a monstrosity like to go on living. Okay, Jesus Christ. This is we're going for a happy ending. We'll find a way. I guess. In the remote territories, there are the omens of an awakened calamity, a promise from fate about a tragic, bloody unrest. Who's yet out in a nearby desolate ice field? The calamity was a mere passing thought. A small tribe of nomadic beasts struggled to survive in the harsh desert. Baby! A young beast with lanky arms patrolled the outskirts of the village, and he turned at the sudden sound of footprints. He lowered his body, assuming an offensive stance, expecting to see a band of raiders. What he saw instead were beasts even smaller than himself. They had long ears, so malnourished they could snap on contact. The young beast regarded them as no threat. He began to ponder. Were they refugees from a random attack? Have they fled here looking for safety? The boy began to pity the small creatures. However, he hesitates to call to them of his own accord. Instead, he chose to observe them, losing himself in thought until... Yes! Two of my favorite fluffies! One of the rank walks toward him, crunching snow beneath her tattered hide shoes. The girl exhaled heartedly through her nose. She was incredibly forward, stronger than her frail demeanor had suggested. The boy shot up right to maintain the decorum, but he had no intention of threatening her. The truth was revealed. They were driven from the territory and searched for a new place to call home. So long as they were considerate of the neighbors and caused no trouble, it was fine. They seemed awfully sincere to the boy. Survival in the Badlands was brutal. Raiders and murderers pounced on any prey too vulnerable to look after its own. But these beasts seemed different. If they continued to wander, he thought it'd be a matter of time until they were goners. He nodded immediately. I love her. His first impressions, it seemed, were off. The boy began to think that he had mistaken her lack of consideration as confidence. Regardless as representative of his people, he led the two of them to the elder. Both of their feet trudged through the dense knee-high snow toward the village. They shared the burden of the silence on their solemn trek until... He couldn't tell if she was unable to endure the silence or if she was simply bored, but he humored her attempt to break the ice. He stuck out his tongue in thought. Only one thing came to mind, especially for beasts of their stature.
近くにあるムムの縄張りがあるけど、間にある大きめの氷山がこちら側を隠してくれてるし。
危険を承知で、あえて連中の足元に潜伏してるってことね。気弱そうな魔獣に見えたけど、意外と肝が座ってるじゃない。
どちらかというと、他に行き場がなかったから最終的にここに落ち着いた感じ。それと氷山の他にも。僕たちを守ってくれるものがあったから。
Someone.
守ってくれるもの?
The young girl blinked in confusion and the boy became animated. Enthusiasm glows in his eyes.
イグニス知ってるよね。ベスティア最強の魔獣。彼がね、時々様子を見に来て、縄張りを守ってくれてるんだ。そのおかげで、僕たちはなんとか 生き残れてる。
The boy patted the top of his head, reliving when his hero patted him on the same spot all those days ago. The warmth stuck with him all this time. He found strength in the
彼
memory.
イグニスって
Why is this my choice to make?
優しいよね。見た目はちょっと怖いけど、僕この間頭撫でてもらっちゃった。
Baby! The girl watched the boy's face turn red as he scoffed and avoided her gaze.
あんなやつに憧れるとか理解できない。単に甘いだけじゃない。自分にかかってるイメージっていうか、誤解を解こうともしないぶっきらぼうだし。
彼のこと知ってるの？
知ってるっていうか、知り合ったっていうか。
The boy guessed to himself how. It seemed likely that this young girl was saved by the very same beast, the so-called strongest in Beastia. Fairy Beast Girl, a weak demon beast girl who found out that Ignis isn't killing like before and is also owing her life during search of Kororo's parents. While not upfront about her feelings, she does seem to be thankful to Ignis. However, afraid to draw more of her ire, the boy kept quiet, expecting a rebuttal from her were he to mention his guess. The boy was sharp and in a short time span had managed to see her for who she was.
また会いたいな。最近姿を見かけないけど。
Yeah, gee, I wonder where he is.
そういえば、あいつが他の魔獣と戦った噂とか聞かないわね。
True, as the girl said, the boy had noticed this too. His strength was undeniable, rendering the fear of losing him to battle to just that, a mindless fear.
なんだか嫌な予感がする。イグニスに何もないといいんだけど。
I wouldn't count on it?
余計な心配よ。第一、何かあったところで、あいつに関する騒動に弱い私たちが関わることなんて万が一にもないんだから。
Haha, funny you would say that. Several days had passed since the band of Enchanté regulars commenced our plans. The GPM headquarters, including all of its high-ups, shuttled to and from meetings on how to deal with Dromi. Through it all, I was there stuck in an interrogation room. In all through, I was starting to become fed up with the runarounds the kid kept giving me. The master himself, the chaotic prince responsible for this hellish vortex before me, was restrained with non-human bindings. He whistled nonchalantly to my charge-in. Early on, he dished his small fry act and revealed his true impish self, dodging each question with a quip or a quack. Don't take it from me. Mikado also sat in on the interrogations, driving himself and his assistant mad as the latter grimaced from his side.
有効の証としてホールの使用を許可していたっていうの。それをあっさり裏切るとはね。血も涙もないとはこの。
I'm gonna be honest with you though, I don't trust Mikado one bit either.
裏切るだなんて心外っす。俺は博士さんを裏切ったつもりなんてないっすよ。
Shut the fuck up!
ホールを悪用する
You
な。
are fucking...
それを先に言っといてくれれば、俺は律儀にそのルールを守ったっす。
Oh yeah, sure you would have. His ability to shift blame was impressive, but I sighed, realizing I had lost count of how many of Dromi's games I sat through.
このまま自分が処分されるとか考えてないのかい?
It's because he knows you won't actually do anything to him in the hopes of getting some information.
だって俺別に人間界には迷惑かけてないっすよ。人間界で暴れたアルムムたちだって自分の意志でホールへ飛び込んだわけだし。
He only drugged them to make them go, hey, we have to kill Ignis.
俺自体はまだ何にもやってないと思うんすけどね。
何もやってない。 I clicked my tongue, betraying my position. Of course he was right. Domi may have been a mastermind, he set things into motion, that much is true. But they couldn't penny any of those things on him to get a real charge in the human world. With this, even upper management realized he was a special case and we needed an alternative to squeeze the truth from him. You gotta go because you have work tomorrow? Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of... I want to finish it. So I'm gonna try. But good night, thank you for coming. The tragedy of Bestia was within the legal jurisdiction of Bestia alone. It was impossible to charge him for that. The law was sly, but he knew this much.
あ、ちなみにホールに関してなんですけど、人間界に繋がってたってこと自体は俺完全に無関係っすから。
Yeah, obviously you're not the big bad that's doing something in the background.
本当に超偶然にっすけど、全部があの町に繋がってるのに気づいて、それをうまーく利用させてもらっただけっす。
ジョシュ君、どう思う？本心かな？
虚偽は含まれていないと判断する。
だからそろそろ解放してほしいんすけど。
He lifted his arms poised and pitiful.
君の腹黒さからしてイグニスのバナル化以外の目的がありそうだから解放できないんだよ。
In the back of my mind, I knew time was almost out. Soon I would have to relinquish custody of Dromi for lack of evidence. I decided it was time I loosened the tie to make the most of our time together.
君は何が目的なんだ？どうして君はバナルを盲信し、自分が食われる可能性も承知の上で復活なんてことを。
はあ？そんなのすっげえかっこいいからに決まってるじゃないですか。
Are you a fucking idiot? His answer took a moment to register. I thought I misheard him, but Mikado and much to my surprise his assistant were both catatonic, so I knew I hadn't imagined the response he gave. Dromi meanwhile was unperturbed by our reactions and began to speak sternly. At first it was about Ignis, no not Ignis, he clarified, Varna, and how his past led him to worship the heretic of doom. Yeah, right, how did he find out about all of this if no one remembers? Now then, time for one of Dromi's history lessons, or should I say Varna's history lessons, since my life is nothing compared to the majestic tale of the world devourer. But enough with the digressions. As I mentioned before, Tigris like me are also descendants of Varna. We were ordered to monitor the Venetor, so we huddled up with them in an uncharted region. Fast forward to now, Varna's just a memory. All my people remember as we got tangled up with the Venetor and got crap for it. Anyway, this is my story. When I was a kid, my village was attacked and everyone knew I was dead, or worse. It was the first time I saw anything like it. In other words, it was the first time I witnessed Bestia's cruel hierarchy at work. It was, well, it took me a while to get over the sight. Some things you never forget. Never. Huh? Why was this so shocking to me? Wasn't it okay to question it all? Supremacy determined only in battle. It sounds good in theory, doesn't it? A platonic ideal of the world's best warrior. But of course, reality was disappointing. It was an endless cycle of massacres, chances for the strong to bully the weak. That was the world I lived to see. The last of my kind. I was pretty cute back then too. The Venetor took me in since our stronghold closely bordered theirs. They raised me as one of their own. That's where I met my bro. Big bro always looked out for others, but he had his hands full with me since I had no other relatives. A certain incident happened around that time. At first, I thought to myself, oh man, another boring massacre. I didn't give it much thought, but then I witnessed a true calamity. That's right, it was my bro, Ignis, who lost control and awakened his Varna instinct. The Minotaurs and even his Firewolf King, all of them, were devoured in a matter of minutes. Okay, so you have a few screws loose.
あれこそが正しい魔獣の姿。他の雑魚どもの戦い方なんて比べるのもおこがましい。額に受けた傷の痛みなんてすっかり忘れて。俺はその最悪にただただ見とれていた。
Boy, I was lucky. My bro returned to normal and passed out right after sparing me from being eaten, so nobody ever got to find out exactly what happened on that fateful day. I covered up all the traces. You covered up all the traces? What? Thank you very much. Hold on. Ugh. Oh, that water doesn't taste like much anymore. Ew. Once things settled down, I started to research what kind of ancestral traits my big bro had. And I found a shrine once maintained by the Tigris people. Proof of Vaina's existence was chronicled. I put the pieces together, realizing that my bro wasn't just a Veneto, but also had the traits which set him apart from his kin. But I had to remember. Oh.
捕食本能を忘れたただ残酷なだけな今の魔獣たちのなんと情けないことかってね。
That's my.
あの最悪にバナルに会いたい。
I hate this. I have no clue how long the story will go on. Like, this could end in like 20 minutes, or it could also go for another hour, and I cannot do another full hour. You know what? I'm just gonna stop at the next perspective change. Which brings us to a third stream to fully complete Ignis's route then next time, but I have to work tomorrow. I cannot go for much longer.
あの獣こそがベスティアの真の頂点に立つにふさわしい。その最強があらゆる魔獣を蹂躙し食い尽くす瞬間を見てみたい。
In order to fulfill my dream, I carried out my plan in secret. One day I talked myself through the plan, but the plucky Kododo overheard me swimming quietly around the shrine. Ah. Neither Mikado nor myself could do anything but sit dumbfounded at what he just said. Yeah, right? It was, in other words, idolatry, much like a child admiring a blown-up version of a television character. Although his obsession was no doubt childish, Dromi connived his deadly plan with no hesitation, all to resurrect Werner. He seemed to convince himself that being devoured was worth it all in the end. His devotion, as esoteric and trivial it all seemed to me, left a deep impression. In short, I had things left to say. Mikado flashed a brief smile, perhaps echoing my sentiment for my eyes only.
おかしいよ、君。僕のクーちゃんに近づかないでくれたまえよ。
はあ？別にそんなお人形には興味ねえんすけど。あー、でもイルさん、あの獲物は惜しかったな。天使って超珍しい人外なんでしょ？だから兄貴が食ったらどうなるかちょっと興味あったんすけどね。あ、もしかしてありがたいご利益で背中から翼が生えたりして。
Please, what the fuck? Dromi loved to laugh at his own jokes. He cackled so hard I thought he snapped, but all of a sudden he dropped the act.
でもそれもあの女が邪魔したせいで確かめることが。
Well, too bad. You are stuck in a romance game, so you're gonna have to deal with a girl being there.
あの女あそこに入り浸るようになってから兄貴は戦いから遠ざかっちゃったし。
What do you mean? He was a regular way before we took over the shop.
最終的にはうまく利用して人間の血肉を食わせることができたんで結果オーライですけど。
お前
I realized that I could no
仮
longer
にも
keep
幼い
quiet.
頃から君の面倒を見ていたイグニスは魔獣だからと偏見を持たず君をアンシャンテのマスターとして親切に出迎えていたあの子一体何だと思ってるんだ。
My boss forward one step away from.
兄貴のことはもちろん尊敬してるっすよ。俺の憧れ、未来のバナルとしてね。ただしあの女や俺も含めたそれ以外の命は全部兄貴のそれ以上でもそれ以下でもないっす。
He was deranged, completely oblivious to what he was saying or what any of it meant.
ちょっと女子くん、どこへ行くんだい？
この道化を相手にこれ以上の尋問は無駄と判断した。退出の許可を要求する。
要求するって 許可を出す前に出ていっ
まあ引くに耐えないって思う気持ちはわかるけどね。
In all truth, had I not been tasked with interrogating the little rat, I would have let him rot inside that cell. I gathered that Romy shared my disinterest with how interrogations were going.
あ、いいな。俺も正直ずーっとこの部屋に閉じ込められて。
Oh yeah, obviously this is starting to make you go cuckoo. You've not been that before.
ってなわけで、そろそろおいとまさせてもらいます。
何?
The entirety of GPM's headquarters shook in a manner not unlike an earthquake. The tumultuous sensation rocked the petite Mikado who fell over. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket as a panic began to set in. I looked at the call ID, letting out a sigh as I recognized my subordinate. The timing of the call coinciding with the bizarre quake intensified my worry. I immediately picked up the call.
こちらリンド、どうした？
課長、大変です。地下のベスティアへ続く固定ホールから。
Wow.
大量の魔獣が。
I pulled the phone from my ears. My agent cried out in agony, but I had heard more than enough. Then a cold sweat drips down my brow, and I hear a bell ring in my head. I realized the gravity of our situation.
すぐにここから離れ。
Eh? By the time I tossed my smartphone into my pocket to lead Mikado out. There they are. I saw a pack of Minotaurs charging through the entrance, standing shoulder to shoulder. I put Mikado behind me, acting as a shield as I pointed my weapon at the angry bolts. A door swung behind them. It didn't take me long to realize it was... Dromi, freed from his binding, stood behind the Minotaur, grinning manically. Okay, he's right though. Why didn't they do that?
こうなることも予想してなかったんですか。まあ、そのもったいない精神のおかげでこうして脱出できたんすけど。
As he taunted us, I noticed Romeo was holding a phone. Don't tell me. I went to check my pocket only to find the phone which I thought was safe in my pocket only moments ago was in his hand.
いつの間に？
そんなに意外っすか？もう俺のこと舐めすぎっすよ。
I see.
見ての通り、イグニスの自称射程君がアンシャンテに来店しちゃってさ。
我らの後を尾行し、アンシャンテのゲートへたどり着くとは。
こいつ逃げ足と気配の消し方だけは超一流だからな。俺としたことが油断してたぜ。
How could I let him slip from notice? Dromio was a marvel, capable of tricking humans and non-humans without batting an eyelash, the perfect conman. But I knew there was only one reason Dromio would steal my phone. Only one.
アンシャンテと連絡を取らせないためか。
I barked out madly from across the room, and the ground shook as the Minotaurs began their menacing approach.
ごめんと。じゃ、生き残れるようせいぜい頑張って。俺はバナルを下ろすための最後の餌を回収しに行かなきゃいけないんで。
くそ。待て、ドロミー。
There was a cry to the void, and Dromi answered with a dismissive wave. Without breaking his aloof stride, he left the room. Dan. There it is. There it is, the next perspective change. Okay. Like, if this turns out next stream that it would have been like, I don't know, I guess just 20 minutes more until the end of the route, then I'm very sorry. But we've been going for almost 3 hours. And then it could go for either very, very long or not at all. There's 3 more CGs in there. 3 more CGs in that route left. So I think it's going to take a while still. Hello! You're coming right in when I'm about to stop the stream. Oh my god. I know what the next stream title is. You don't mind the break, that's great. I'm also really sleepy, it's almost 11. We're in the same time zone, you know what time it is. Next stream title will be These Hands Are Rated D for Draw Me. But next stream will only be on Sunday. Oh, you've been lurking for a while. Okay. Thank you then. I hope you enjoyed it so far. And thank you for the follow. Next stream for this one will be on Sunday, where we will finally finish this route, hopefully, and then get started on the next one. Tomorrow is Okami time, and then we see how. Well, I think we have a bunch to go in Okami as well, so both of these games will go on for just a little longer. But for now, thank you very much for watching. If I can manage. There we go. Put on my ending screen. And my ending song. Thank you very much for coming. We shall see each other tomorrow with Okami, or if you are not interested in Okami but in Café Enchanté, then on Sunday. Thank you. You also have a good night. See you then. Bye bye. I forgot to put on the sound so the song would play. So if anyone's still here, I'm very sorry. Please enjoy the rest of the song.